Alright. Gonna start with Higurashi. Um, let's see. Oh, quick rundown at last time while I'm stuff. But, okay. So, Satoko, um, which is, the blonde younger kid is, so her uncle had returned, after having disappeared or whatever, because he was afraid of, uh, falling victim to Oyashiro's curse, like his wife did. So now that he's returned, he's resuming his thing of being uh, abusive towards the Toko, um, and so the protagonist Keiichi, as well as his friends, which are also friends of Satoko, they're trying to do something that when we last they had reported it to their teacher, who is currently reporting to the authorities, and we'll see how that plays out. Considering the track record of this game in the previous uh, chapters slash volumes, I the how things pan out, bleh. It's just normally not good, but yeah, yeah. Okay, we already done it last time. You won. The die of fate had been cast, reporting to a public agency, which we'd kept being warned could instead result in something far worse for Satoko. We didn't have the evidence first. Just like that. I failed. Had I let my emotions get the better of me in that moment? I should have stayed silent and left everything to Mion, and she had been relatively calm. I remembered the punishment game where we had to badmouth Curry, and how me saying anything would have made it worse, and Satoko told us to leave the talking to her. The same thing here. Impulsive, maybe I should have just shut up and looked at the floor. But it was too late to lament it. The die I had thrown wouldn't be coming back into my hands. All we could do was pray for something good to happen. Keiichi-kun, you did everything you could. Leave it to the teachers now, okay? Everything I could? I really gave it everything I had. If I had really struggled, I would have dragged Satoko out of her home last night and hidden her in some abandoned house. I didn't, but that means I didn't do everything I could. Stop thinking about it, alright? You're being a little too persistent, Keiichi-kun. At this rate, you'll collapse. Leave me alone. I left her with those words and stared lazily up at the ceiling. I wondered if I really got Chie-sensei to understand. The public agency intervene, solve everything within the day. Would they acknowledge the abuse and guarantee her safety? After lunch break, our afternoon classes were mostly self-study. The teacher came back to the classroom occasionally, but when the phone in the lounge would ring, he'd have a long conversation with the caller. Everyone in class got the feeling they know what these phone calls were about. Sensei came trotting back from the classroom. I'm really sorry. Really sorry for all the phone calls recently. Let's call it a day. President, please lead the class. Everybody stand up. Looked to me like Sensei had been wearing a dark expression ever since after lunch break. It wasn't a very relieving expression. It wouldn't be. Even if Sensei 100% understood the situation and passionately explained it to the other person. At the end, Child Consultation Center, as a public agency, would be the one to decide whether to get her to safety. Sensei understood that as well as us. That's why she looks so unreliable right now. Hey, Chan, let's go home. I don't think anyone feels like having the club today. Mi-chan, it's no fun if someone's not here. Reina was right. It was no fun for us if someone was missing. The teacher's expression had shown more promise, and maybe we could have gone home more comfortably. But I couldn't let myself feel relieved. I couldn't be naive, tell myself all I could do was pray now that the dice had been cast. Just in case they didn't get her to safety and decided to wait and see again. I need to take further measures. We've asked the people who could do something official already, and there was one more place that was worth asking for help. Might laugh it off. Might be right. I could be endangering my own life. I'd try. Oh, Mion, is it okay if I stop by your place today? You've got a lot of manga, right? I want to borrow a bunch of them. Huh? Sure, I guess. There was an ominous meaning behind my words, so Mion realized what I really meant right away. I wanted to talk about something alone. That's what I meant. Mi-chan, Keiichi-kun, let's go home. Rena already had her shoes on and was waving to us from the schoolyard. The music they were playing in the background, that's really good. The soundtrack in this game, and I've been very impressed with the soundtrack. The volume's been going. I think I haven't heard the track that they were doing up until now. I don't believe I've heard that before, at least in previous volumes. It had that it was very unnerving and stuff like that. It was that sort of kind of background, but also unnerving, not a background relaxing. Not lo-fi chill, lo-fi, um, um, not chill. I don't, lo-fi hot, lo-fi warm. That doesn't sound right at all. This doesn't sound good. Mion's house was gigantic in every way imaginable. The house itself was vaguely old-fashioned. Traditional Japanese house, but the yard, I guess, for their plot of land was enormous. Oh, I thank you for the head pat, Ifabun. And it easily convinced me that they really were major landowners. Hinamizawa under their thumb. Mion brought me through the guest room, and a servant brought us some tea. Wow, you really are rich, huh? You even got housekeepers. Grandma are the only ones who live here. I won't be able to do everything myself. The servant left, telling us it was 5 o'clock, then withdrew with soft footsteps. We have people come in to take care of Grandma and clean 2 or 3 times a week. They come in rotations of 3 or 4, so there's someone here almost every day. Only until evening, though. Oh, and if we're having a party or something where we need more help, we'll call up different people. You had the money to hire all these people. Just say, take Satoko in. I glared at her as I thought that, and Mion seemed to catch on immediately. Oh, sorry. It's fine. I know it's not a money problem. Just to be clear, my family may be rich, but it's not money that I can use freely for myself, okay? I don't want you to misunderstand that. Kinda looked like I was bullying her. Mion had been apologizing to me a lot lately. Was Mion the sort of person who would do that this much? Maybe it's just that I've been looking so grim lately. Oh, what's up? You had something to talk about, right? I have something pretty serious to discuss, Mion. This will be sudden, and you might be surprised, but I want you to hear me out. What? Oh, I'll give you a way out first. Even if what I say is true, you don't need to admit it. You're allowed to play dumb, but I want you to listen until the end. I have something to say to the next leader, but still the most important of the three families of Onigafuchi Village, Mion Sonizaki. First, Mion looked like she had no idea what I was saying, but at hearing the whole sentence and putting it together, she reacted. Where did you hear that? Doesn't really matter. I definitely couldn't tell her who told me. Kano-san told me not to, but please forgive me. This is why I asked you about it after all. I was surprised just that you'd heard of Onigafuchi Village, Kei-chan. And you seem to know a lot of things, both true and false, about me, too. Yeah, true and false. I really might just have the wrong impression here. But I'm okay with that, so listen. If it really is true. I don't know what you're getting at, Kei-chan. Let me say this beforehand. Got a big misunderstanding. If it were possible, I wouldn't want to hear what you're about to say. Because even if you said it, I can't do anything to help you. Still, talking about it will lighten your burden even a little. I'll listen. I'm only just going to listen. Then more will happen. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Mion seemed to know what kind of thing I'd be talking about. She warned me that doing so would be fruitless. That much was obvious. What I was going to say was true, and the Sonizaki family be the masterminds behind the string of freak deaths that had been occurring every year in Hidamizawa. You know that stuff about Oyashiro-sama's curse, right? Mion nodded a little. No one knows what it is or why it happens. Even if each incident is solved, the string of deaths and accidents as a whole is still a mystery. But there's one thing connecting them all. That's how the targets are always enemies of the village. Seems like it. Mion spoke as if it didn't relate to her. That was fine. You didn't have to admit it. For now, I just wanted to stay quiet and listen to me. The day after tomorrow. It's Watanagashi, isn't it? Has the sacrifice for this year's curse been decided already? Mion didn't answer. Her expression remained the same, too. Like she said, just quietly listening. Sorry. Promise was that you just listen. So it's weird for me to ask a question, huh? Mion gave me a look she'd never given me before. Far away look. A sympathetic one. Didn't nod. Just smiled faintly and listened to me. If this year's curse isn't going to be on Satoko's uncle, then please, change it to him. I mean, last year was her aunt, right? It's in the right order, so it wouldn't be weird. You're right. It seems like there's an order. I mean, after her aunt died to the curse last year, he abandoned Satoko and fled into the town for a whole year. Why wouldn't a guy like that definitely be next on Oyashiro-sama's list? There shouldn't be any issue of choosing him for this year. I see. If he were to die from the curse this year, no one would see anything unusual about it. I heard that Oyashiro-sama's curse as well. No matter how I looked at it, I wasn't sure whether I should continue. No matter how I tried, words wouldn't come out. The string of freak deaths in Hinamizawa, also called Oyashiro-sama's curse. You're saying they're incidents perpetuated by the village, carried out by the three families at the Sonozaki's instructions. That it? I wasn't care one bit whether you have anything to do with it. I'm just saying, if you have any way of communicating with whoever decides the targets of the curse, and I just want you to tell them to choose Satoko's uncle. Please. Everything you've been saying has been terrible. If the freak death incidents in Hinamizawa weren't carried out by the will of the Sonozaki family, that would mean the main culprit would be me, wouldn't it? I would have chosen the target of the curse, given the instructions. Killed many people, got rid of others. Calling me a murderer, Kei-chan? I didn't say that. Did you listen to me? I don't care whether you're the one behind the murders or not, I just don't. Even if you were the culprit, it doesn't change the fact that you're my friend. Doesn't matter at all. If the police were chasing you, I'd come to help. I'd make you an alibi and even help you escape. Because we're friends and comrades. Aren't we? Mion looked surprised for a while. Dumbfounded. Now you're declaring yourself complicit? Hey, Chan, that's pretty bold of you. Come on, don't interrupt. Toko's uncle, choose him for... Stop right there, Kei-chan. I want to start on dinner soon. Well, I'd like to leave things at this. Mion. I then realized that my cheeks were wet with tears. I slid down my chin and fell, drip drop, the tatami mat. It's like I said at the start. Got a big misunderstanding. Oyashiro-sama's curse is just that. Even if there were people behind those incidents, they don't have anything to do with the Sonozaki family or me either. Right. I understand that, it's just... It was touching to hear such a desperate plea, Kei-chan, but that was all it was. Even if I wanted to help, I can't. You understand that too, right? Yeah. But now I know how you feel so well it hurts. If I really were, like you said, the one controlling the three families and choosing the sacrifices every year, I'd probably grant your wish. Mion. But the reality is different. I'm just Mion Sonozaki. My family may be the subject of all sorts of bad rumors about controlling Hinamizawa from the shadows, but we have nothing to do with the freak death incidents. We may have been a little extreme during the Dam War, that's all. We would never do something so insane as to kill people. That's... Don't say such sad things. Right now, at least. Don't care. Why can't you just be nice and lie to me? Kei-chan, you're free to believe what you like. If I lied to you now, you'd be convinced Satoko would be free the night after tomorrow, and you'd be able to shed much of your burden. However, reality is harsh. Toko's uncle will survive beyond that day. You'd still be alive next week after that. You need to prepare yourself for that. I don't want you coming to me the day after the Watangashi and demanding to know why he wasn't killed. Mion. Mion stood up slowly and closed the sliding door to keep out the wind that had grown chilly. Was it Mio-san? Did she give you all those ideas? She really likes to misunderstand things about Hinamizawa. Well, we can let her have her fun. But I don't really want her influence you, Kei-chan. Jeez. This is why outsiders are no good. Kano-san is Nothing to do with it. Rat. Don't worry. Even though I know she told you about it, Kate-chan, nothing's going to happen. Not like Mio-san will be chosen for this year's curse. As we don't even know for sure if the curse will happen this year. Maybe it all was just a pile of unfortunate coincidences. Thanks for listening. If you aren't connected to the serial deaths at all, then that must have been an uncomfortable conversation. I'll apologize for it. I see. We'll apologize for it. I feel like that was kind of a weird... That was a little bit weird. I don't know, struck me as odd or something. Then again, this is it's a very, an awkward situation. Mion said she didn't have much time, but she still brought me to the gate. She said she had a meeting or something about Sunday's Watanagashi festival, so there would be a lot of people from the town council and the festival committee coming. Despite her day being so busy, she still listened to what I had to say. There's a God in heaven, and he probably understands how strongly you feel. Yeah. I'm really sorry for being so weird today. You could pretend like the discussion never happened if you want. Okay. I'll forget about it. Okay. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. I had really only spent a short time with Mion. Talking to her made me think. It was clear that what Takano-san had told me, at least, wasn't a complete fabrication. If Mion was really unconnected to the incidents, then she probably wouldn't have listened to me so quietly. She heard me out until I was done without making any quips. I want to think that was proof. I did kind of feel like I was grasping at straws. Of course, thinking back on it, it was a terrible thing to discuss. I went to my friend's house, called her a serial murderer, then told her to kill Satoko's uncle. I was the only one talking that whole time. Mion quietly listened to everything I had to say like a pastor listening to confession. She could have gotten angry partway through, told me off, to go wash my face in miso soup and come back later. But she didn't. That proof that Mion's family, the Sonizaki, are the masterminds? Was she just listening because she felt sorry for me going kinda crazy? I didn't know which it was, but it was the one effort I could make at the moment. It was another form of insurance. Did worse come to worse, and the public agency decided to wait and see. It was a completely useless resistance, literally grasping at straws. Sensei said that if she reported to the Child Consultation Center, they'd have to respond on the same day. They already be in the middle of responding to it now? Satoko came to school tomorrow morning, all energetic, and everything would be just a needless fear. Why couldn't tomorrow come faster? That night was unusually hot and humid, and I couldn't get to sleep. I said all that to Sensei. They couldn't possibly decide to wait and see again this year. Satoko. Was it like for her tonight? Had she tasted the end of her nightmare, enjoying a night of liberation? I actually put my hands together, prayed into my futon. Good morning, Keiichi-kun. Morning. Thank goodness. I thought you overslept today, too. Your mom said you'd gotten on ahead yesterday, and you weren't at school. I was worried that you had gotten heat stroke halfway there. Yeah. I'm very sorry for all the worry I caused you yesterday. Hey, good morning. Michan, good morning. Wow, you really stink of liquor. Get found out for sure. Oh, right. Wasn't there a big business meeting with all the people on the town council yesterday? They only called it that. It was more like a party. We have the festival every year, right? Wouldn't have any annoying meetings at this point. You going to help out with the festival this afternoon, then? Yep. I have to do a meet and greet with all sorts of people in Grandma's place. Besides, they already started setting up for the festival. Our morning conversation was lighthearted as usual. It looked like Mion had thankfully forgotten about how I barged into her house yesterday with that crazy talk. The more I think back on it, I felt like I'd really said something terrible to her. I was really thoughtless, and it wouldn't have been weird if she'd yelled at me. It was highly possible Takano-san had exaggerated her story. Think that our comrade and friend, Mion, the young leader of the Sonozakis, one of the three families effectively controlling Hinamizawa, was pulling the strings behind the serial death incidents. It was a little unbelievable, but there was even a 1% chance that it was true. What I said yesterday to Mion might have been a success. Yes, it was no more than 1 in 100. That little bit of effort might have brought the chances of saving Satoko up by even a tiny bit. At least I'd made that effort. After yesterday ended, I was sure I'd done everything I possibly could. If there was something else I could do, it was probably just to clap my hands and pray that Satoko's uncle would be killed by the curse. I hope Satoko makes it today. Me too. Sensei is doing things for her, right? I'm sure it'll be fine. My aunt is a welfare agent in the Hinamizawa district. I gave her a call last night. I didn't know your aunt was a welfare officer. What happened? Did you tell her about Satoko-chan? Yep. Chie-sensei called the child consultation center right after we talked to her. Child welfare officer apparently visited before the night was over. My aunt said that they were going to pay visits at regular intervals from now on. Enough of the dumb little stuff. I want to know what happened to Satoko. Did they get her safe? My aunt wasn't that informed about it. I was supposed to keep this a secret anyway. Her telling me was a big breach of ethics in the first place. Damn, that makes me feel even worse. Let's get to school. Right. Discussing this more would just make us feel worse. It was far quicker to go to school and see if Satoko was safe or not. 3 of us nodded and ran off. Was Satoko safe? What measure had the child consultation center taken? Didn't care what. As long as we could go back to our peaceful life with Satoko today, didn't matter to me. The shoe racks at the entrance. Reina took a peek in Satoko's shoe cubby. Ah, Satoko's shoes are here. They're here. Hey, Chan, Satoko came. Thank goodness. Don't know if anything happened just because she came to school. Can't know anything until we see her face. Brought it towards the classroom. The classroom was lively. It usually was in the morning. Toko, where are you? Meep. He's right here. It's too early in the morning to be so loud. Could you please keep it down a bit? Toko-chan, are you okay? All our friends crowded around Satoko excitedly. A probation officer came, right? How did it go? Who was it that called them? I swear. It's quite a mess, you know. It was the teacher. You were absent for so long, of course she was worried. Satoko said, "Well, I told you I'm fine," under her breath. She was still. trying to overcome all the suffering on her own. It was a big bother to to both me and my uncle. That person just barged in on us suddenly. Jeez. Everyone was worried about you, Satoko. Don't say it was a bother. Jeez. Anyway, what happened? Nothing happened. My cold got better, so I came back to school, that's all. I can't take too much time off from now on, because then you'll all worry about me. What was Satoko saying? What happened to, well, your uncle? Oh, he admitted there were some misunderstandings, and we both apologized. Rika-chan grabbed the back of my collar and pulled me away. What is it, Rika-chan? Rika-chan silently dragged me all the way into the hallway. Chan, what that mean? Toko said nothing was happening and chased them away. Why? Why? Somewhere in my mind, I thought it might turn out like this. Toko didn't ask for anyone's help, didn't hide behind anyone. He was trying to ride out this pain. He wanted to show Satoshi proof that if he came back to them, he wouldn't need to hide behind him anymore. But Coach said probation officers can bring her to safety in emergency, even if it's against her wishes. However much Satoko denies the abuse, it's a fact. Chie-sensei finally came. Her expression was far from cheerful. Yes, you're right, my Barakun. The child welfare officer determines that it's an emergency. They have the right to immediately take them to safety, regardless of the affected party's intent. And why? Why is Satoko's intent being respected so much? It's weird. Why don't they put her into safety? After the person in charge of the Child Consultation Center looked into it from many angles, they determined. Hell is that? Sensei, didn't you say it was going to be alright? Did you definitely save her? What's the meaning of this? This doesn't make any sense. Answer me, damn it. Eiichi, this is actually the third time someone has reported Satoko's child abuse. It happened twice in the past, too. Harude-san. Sensei tried to stop her, but Rika-chan went on, speaking anyway. Twice before? I heard they decided to wait and see after reporting it the winter before last. It happened before then, too? Satoko's father, who died, wasn't her real father. What? Rika-chan, that's... what? I'm stunned at the sudden revelation. I had no idea what Rika-chan wanted to tell me, but it seemed really important, so I couldn't get a word in either. Satoko's mother remarried. She brought Satoko and Satoshi with her. They weren't related by blood to their father. Satoshi was a good kid, one who listened politely to what adults told him. He immediately welcomed by their new father and was loved, but Satoko was different. She was rebellious. She told lies. She played pranks. Her stepfather didn't like her at all. What do you mean? Even before she was given to her uncle and his wife, Toko didn't have a very good relationship with her family. Of course, her stepfather didn't have any malicious intent at the start. At first, he must have worked hard to get his new daughter to accept him. But the young Satoko didn't make any effort at all towards that end. He was distant towards her stepfather and never opened her heart to him even a little. Just got on his nerves all the time, seemingly forced lies and pranks. Her father's discipline and punishments must have been loving at first, of course, but that too faded quickly. I don't know because I wasn't in Hinamizawa at the time, but I learned this on the phone yesterday. What story did you hear, Sensei? That Satoko-chan wanted to trick her parents, especially her her stepfather, so she inflicted wounds on herself so she could make up a false story about abuse, and that she sent out an SOS herself. She made up a story about hurting herself? Satoko made a fake phone call to try and get rid of the father she hated. Child welfare officers rushed there and heard the story. Her father genuinely apologized for a few times when he had gone too far, agreed to let the child welfare center give him coaching. Related agencies looked into it quite a bit. They determined that Satoko-chan and her stepmother's hearts not being quite matched up was the cause of the incident, but they found another problem above that with Satoko-chan. Problem with Satoko? What was it? Toko's mother. There were a few times where she had lived with de facto husbands, though those relationships didn't result in remarriage. From a young age, Satoko had been forced to call at least 2 or 3 people her father. At some point, Satoko's pranks escalated. He would spill food on purpose, turn over her plate, and even throw it. He would break the windows in the neighborhood and shoplift candy. He would put thumbtacks everywhere and set other traps to seriously hurt people. Not in the way she did now, just to get laughs. He was also fond of telling lies that would be found out right away, and people got mad at her every time. But she never, ever changed her behavior. Please, don't think Satoko-chan was a problem child. Satoko-chan was young. It's an act of self-defense she had taken against the unknown men her mother had chosen. In regards to Satoko's problematic behavior, child psychology experts from public institutions indicated her actions were to draw her mother's attention to herself. They acknowledged that she had a form of harmful emotional trauma and declared that she needed counseling and therapy from professionals. They didn't know whether that therapy had healed the wounds in her heart. Satoko-chan purposely hurt herself and told them that she was being abused by her stepfather in an attempt to chase him out. But in the end, her stepfather did abuse her, right? No, all of the abuse had been made up by Satoko-chan. Her stepfather, of course, may have scolded her in a somewhat emotional way, but it was nothing out of the ordinary. Satoko had lied to chase away her stepfather. They saw through her right away and found out Satoko had issues. Could it be that's why the winter before last they decided to wait and see? Yes, Child Consultation Center had all their past records, so they needed to act carefully in case Satoko was lying. The hell? So what? Satoko might be telling a lie, so they needed to be careful. So how does that mean they just end up waiting and seeing? It was the girl who cried wolf. That fable about telling a lie once, making others unwilling to believe you later. That's bullshit. The past has nothing to do with this, does it? Only what's really happening right now is important. Satoko is being abused by her uncle. Why is something that happened in the past getting in the way helping her now? Neither Sensei nor Rika-chan had anything to say to that. Anyway, yesterday, the probation officer visited to carefully determine what was going on. And Satoko dealt with him, put on the best, strongest smile she could manage, and denied the abuse. Of course, she was probably being threatened to keep quiet about it by her uncle. Satoko was trying to outlast everything without asking for help. Satoko wanted to wait for Satoshi to come back home. She outright denied the truth of the abuse. What an idiot. What? You're not really enduring it. Do you really think pretending like this will actually bring Satoshi back? Just stop it already. Satoshi, he abandoned you. And the fact that he hasn't shown up to save you now is proof, isn't it? Just stop it. Please stop being weird and pretending to endure it. Forget everything we just said. Understand? If you tell anyone else, your teacher will be very mad with you. Chie-sensei gave me a warning then left to go back to the teacher's lounge. Ichi, please, don't think Satoko is a pathetic, pitiful girl. She's living life. Know that. She's our irreplaceable friend. Toko is still trying her best. Let's watch over her a little longer. The person from the consultation center may visit periodically from now on. If something terrible happens, they'll help her right away. Yeah, but only after it happens. Any more than that would have sounded like I was picking a fight, so I firmly swallowed my next words and went back to the classroom. Mion and Reina were talking to Satoko like they always did. It was a silly conversation, a humorous, even fun one, like it was any old day. If Satoko really said she could still endure it, then maybe I should do as Rika-chan said and watch over her. Maybe whatever help I offer will just go unwanted. Okay, why don't we all have lunch? Meep. Time she goes meep, at this point I end up doing like a bad roadrunner. Meep. Meep, meep. Meep. Been a while since it's been all 5 of us. Really is how it has to be. Here. Come on, you too, Kei-chan. Bring your desk over. Satoko brought her own desk over as well, grinning broadly. Even knowing nothing had been resolved, this exchange was pleasant. It made me remember how fun it used to be. Can't have Rika making a bento for me forever. I don't mind. Have fun making your bento. Rika-chan's such a good girl. Having such a good friend must be so reassuring. Put in the big steak, and Satoko puts in the burnt stuff. If it was just Satoko, he's so sad, so very sad. Nipa. I take it back. Oh, He's Rika-chan after all. Come on, look. Got omelets right today. Mushrooms and stuff are delicious. Delicious. Oh. I say it every time, but your craftsmanship is splendid. Could become a wife whenever and not have a problem. A wife? A wife? Being a wife? Oh. Using the word wife is totally forbidden around Reina. Please don't say it again. I'll think about what I've done. A little. By the way, what's in your lunch, Mion? It looks different again today. We're all waiting in anticipation. It's a rich assortment of side dishes left over from what my uncle brought last night. Stew looks really great, huh? Color of the radishes too, really good, right? Wow, it looks delicious. Stew tastes best when it's left overnight. This looks like it would be really good. So there'll be none left for Satoko. I'll eat it all and tell you what I think, so just be quiet and watch. What was that? Hand over my portion too. Elbow punch headbutt. I'll use my knees too. Yeah. Oh. At close range like this, my advantage is unwavering. Keiji-san, The daikon in your portion tastes really good. Damn it, coming right for me from the start and using a combo attack. How humiliating. This little exchange, how long had it been? It looked like they ended up going with the wait-and-see approach, but maybe her uncle had realized he'd gone a little too far and would dial it back now. If her treatment improved a little, would that be a good thing? Tuka was grinning wider than I'd ever seen as she chomped down on her mouthful of the daikon she'd plundered from me. Did it really taste that good? Satoko was somewhat cute like that, and just as I'd done many times, I grabbed her head and started petting it. Catch. Smack, flip-flop, clatter-clatter. Huh? Toko-chan? It was so sudden that for a moment I didn't know what had happened. The back of my hand was stinging. Went to pet Satoko's head and then she hit my hand. What's wrong, Satoko? Satoko was scratching at her head, as though a pimple or something had appeared on it. It became itchy. So sudden, so unprovoked, that I didn't understand what happened. What's wrong, Satoko? At some point, her body had been covered in a thin layer of sweat, and her breathing had turned ragged. When I pet her head, did she not like it? Was that what it meant? Did you dislike being petted? Once again, slowly I brought out the palm of my hand and brought it close to Satoko's head. The instant the palm of my hand touched her head, there was a shock like static electricity, and Satoko began to howl. Thud. Slam. He grabbed my arm in both hands as if picking off a snake, trying to cling to her, as if trying to throw away something dirty. She threw it violently. It happened too suddenly for me to react. I hit the desk behind me, and both it and I fell to the floor. The classroom fell deathly silent. As Satoko bellowed, it sounded like she was in the throes of death, and she unsteadily backed away. Then she threw up the food she'd just eaten. She vomited it all back up. The sound of Satoko's vomit hitting the floor rang through the classroom. Are you okay, Satoko? You seem sick. I reached out a hand, and she swatted away with all her might, with such extreme strength that I fell into the floor again. Satoko put both her hands on her head as though protecting it, groaned some more, and took a few steps back. And then she began swinging both hands around. Students in nearby seats were forced to evacuate. She grabbed anything within reach, bento boxes, chairs, threw them, tossed them, and flung them about. Wait, stop it, Satoko. What's wrong with you? She screamed out as if Mion's word had caused her physical pain. One spoke a word to her. Yep. It is, it is Higurashi if we return back. And welcome in, Foxcliff. I hope you're doing well. All the students were withdrawing behind us, leaving Satoko alone in the corner of the classroom. Around her, their desks and chairs all over the floor, bento lay scattered. It was terrible. All I could hear was Satoko's ragged breaths and the voices of the cicadas. Moment namesake. There's a lot of things that cry in this game. I'm sorry. The strings of tension loosened around Satoko. Maybe she suddenly grew scared of her own actions because she started trembling, gave a word of apology. But nobody knew just who that apology was directed towards. So for now, I decided to answer as everyone's representative. No, it's fine. Are you all right? I... I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry. Our words didn't match each other at all. Satoko hugged her shoulders and back. Back she went. She ran into the locker with the cleaning supplies in it. Even that made her give a little yelp. The impact caused the bucket atop the locker to fall, making a loud sound, and that scared Satoko most of all. She almost jumped out of her skin, grabbing a bunch of the curtain in her hands. Nobody spoke to her. They could only look, not even remembering to blink. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I'm sorry. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. Satoko. What? What on earth? I stood up, took a step away from everyone, and approached Satoko. What? What happened? I said... I... I said... Don't know. I don't know. Wrong, you're wrong. Please stop. Please, please. Forgive me. Just calm down. Toko, you know who I am. No more. No more. I hate this. I hate this. Every time I took a step forward, he grasped the curtains more tightly and cried out. Satoko, it's me. It's Keiichi. Don't you recognize me? Would never, ever hurt you. Oh. Come on. Calm down. It's all right. I'm your friend. Help me. Help me. I don't want to be scared. It feels bad. No, I don't. Suddenly, my shoulders were grabbed and I was dragged backward. It was Reina. Sorry, Keiichi-kun. Get a little further back. After pulling me back, he ran towards Satoko in my place. It's okay, Satoko-chan. There's nothing to be scared of. Please, don't worry. No, no. No more. More of that. Nee. Nini, help me. Help me. Nini, help me. As she gripped the curtains and kept calling for Nini, she continued to wail about being forgiven for something, to be saved from something. What is this? Mion gnashed her teeth and groaned, and there were tears falling from her firmly closed eyes. The hell? What is this? Didn't this all come to an end yesterday? Aren't we supposed to go back to our old lives? Mion. Mion. Crash. There was a crazy sound. Rain had taken the cleaning supply locker and kicked it down to the ground. Everyone stood surprised at Reina's unexpected act of brutality. After that, Reina embraced the brawling Satoko from behind and started crying with her, stifled. Reina, what's wrong? Sorry. Ichi-kun, be quiet for a minute. Is it now? What happened? What did Satoko tell you? Did you hear? Shut the hell up. I told you to shut your mouth, asshole. Reina's raw, hostile emotion hit me like a brick. It was no more than a momentary howl of emotion for Reina, but it was more than that for me. She had shown me what was behind all that emotion, what was in her heart. Toko, John. No, 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 no. No more. No more. Forgive us. Didn't do anything for you. Forgive us. Nini. 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 Sorry. Sorry. Forgive us for being unable to do anything. Reina's words Made me feel as though the blood vessels in the back of my head were suddenly all turning to ash. My vision grew distant, blurred with gray, and the world lost its color. I thought we could save Satoko. But though I knew it'd be the sooner the better, I thought there was no time limit for doing that. Never even dreamed we could be too late. I'd been making a huge mistake. I thought Satoko could be hurt, but never that she'd break. Such a huge mistake. People, they break. Thinking that they don't is absolutely absurd. We needed to save Satoko. We needed to save her before she broke. That fatal lapse in awareness that brought this on. Whose fault was it? That went without saying. Mine. No. Ours. We all took on the duty of saving Satoko, but we were negligent to the point of laziness. In that sense, this was the inevitable result. Even if this didn't happen today, it happened tomorrow or the day after or the next week, we would have just sat around doing nothing until that day. This was the obvious result. I slumped down to my knees, just as Mion and Rika-chan had done. I too closed my eyes tight, couldn't stop myself from sobbing. What is all this noise about? Wait, what's happened? The teacher came, her face screwed up at the terrible spectacle before her. The instant she realized the teacher was here, Toko went through another complete change. He wiped her face with the curtains, and like nothing happened, smiled. Haojo-san? What on earth is going on here? Oh, I just got into a little squabble with Reina-san is all. Went a little crazy over our lunches, right? Raiden didn't nod in reply, but then, since Satoko wished it, he nodded without strength. The rest of the class didn't keep up with her extreme changes. We all just stared in a daze. It was just a little horseplay. I scared everyone out of their wits. Satoko would probably sweep the whole thing under the rug. For what? Her heart is torn to pieces. But what? What else? You wanted your Nini to help, didn't you? But unfortunately for you, Satoshi doesn't ever intend on coming back. Never that easy. He'll just conveniently show up and save you. So you don't have to wait for him anymore. You can cry, beg for help, and you can run away. We can't do anything, Mion suddenly said. She spoke then, those few words that had tormented me countless times. Those words were a spell. When I heard them, my whole body suddenly regained its calm. My emotions all slipped away like they'd never been there, like a wave departing. And then, the world's color flipped inside out. I don't think this is a good sign. My field of view expanded. Just wanna... Yup, got some vibes. Definite bad vibes. My field of view expanded. My head grew remarkably cold, and I felt like my mind's volume had grown even wider than the classroom we were in. At the time, my soul was doubtlessly no longer in the small, petty vessel of my head, but floating in the air a little bit above it. It was a mysterious feeling of release. I broke free of the cramped confines of my skull, stretched out my roots in all directions as far as I wanted to. It was a strange feeling, and one I'd never felt ever before, an odd sense of exhilaration. My sharpened senses caused me to transcend. My mind was sharper than a knife's edge, and I immediately decided that spending the time to let myself be crushed with grief would be an absolute waste. I erased all the garbage information from my brain. I expelled the pointless emotions presenting obstacles to action. Leon, curse it all you want. Curse our powerlessness as much as you want. Huh? If I could have taken back what had happened by crying about it, I'd have cried all day. But the fact was, this was how things had turned out. Couldn't take back what had happened. The top priority then would be to prevent the situation from worsening further, to sever the chains of misfortune. Until today, I had been looking at things so narrow-mindedly I could scarce believe it. Save Satoko. The only thing to do was to save Satoko. That's the only thing I thought about. I didn't allow myself to realize the most basic, direct, and certain way of removing the source of Satoko's unhappiness. No, actually I realized it yesterday. But as for the means, I'd rely on some stupid curse from some dumb deity. I never considered carrying out the task myself. I would obliterate Satoko's uncle. There were plenty of ways to do it. This was a task that held infinite methods. Ironically, the method of saving Satoko required mostly money, but the method of killing that man pretty much took no money at all. You could kill him with the least amount of investment. The least amount of money suited him. It was only the weight of his life. I kept eliminating needless, worthless information from my head, replenishing it with only the knowledge I'd need to achieve my goal. I used every cell in my brain to think about how I'd kill him. The way I killed him didn't matter. I would allow any method, from whatever time and whatever country, as long as it ended in a quick and certain death. If I were to have an additional condition, it would be to not get caught. Removing him was an act designed to return the peaceful times we had with Satoko. If I was arrested in exchange for the removal, then we might as well have killed each other. With only him gone, we'd go back to our normal lives. It was my supreme objective, my ultimate goal. Kill him, definitely. But definitely don't leave evidence either. Two alternatives at odds with one another. The condition of not leaving a trace back to me automatically narrowed the number of murder methods. No witnesses was an absolute must. Fortunately, given the right time in Himizawa, there would be nobody around. I mentally reconstructed the land around Satoko's house. The number of pedestrians, different at different times. The movement algorithm of the neighbors. Would I lure him out or charge at him? What would my weapon be? When and where would I carry this out? Where? It needed to be somewhere I wouldn't leave a trace. When? It needed to be as soon as possible, for Satoko's safety without wasting even a millisecond. This is absurd. Completely absurd. When I thought about it this way, it struck me how easy the act of killing was. If I could leave evidence, if I was just going to kill him, anyone could easily turn into a murderer. But our reason prevented that. It told us doing so would get us arrested for sure. In the end, being arrested by the police was the final thing preventing people from committing homicide. Absurd. If you went all the way out into the very middle of the ocean, you wouldn't leave any trace at all. Anyone would drop those they hated into the depths if they knew that. It was all too easy to simply remove him. I could leave class right now, grab a metal baseball bat or something from the schoolyard, go to his house and attack him. Estimated time would be 25 minutes. If I want us to kill each other, it wouldn't even be minutes. I could do it in 1500 seconds. I knew just how much his continued existence depended on me. He was nothing. I could expel him from this world within just 1500 seconds after making up my mind. From when I decided what to do, he had only 1500 seconds. Actually, if I ran full speed to his house, that number would go down even further. He was alive. He was still a part of this world at this very moment, having torn Satoko's body and mind to shreds. Why? Because I was letting him live. I was permitting him to live, so he was alive. If I rescinded that permission, it would be evacuating this mortal coil within 1500 seconds. You think I'd let you live to breathe even 1500 more seconds of air? I'm taking that permission back. Right here, right now. You'd better thank me for letting you live until today. However, I actually need more than 1500 seconds. I'm not just gonna end you. Getting back our old lives is far more important. It's only you I'll be cutting out of this world. They won't find a culprit. I'll forget that I dirtied my hands on the likes of you as naturally as I brush my teeth before bed. So to do that, I'll make a special exception for you and give you more than 1500 seconds. I'll give you special permission to keep on living as you have until I construct the perfect plan for your murder. Wait, Keiichi. Can't let that time go to waste. Yeah, I know. I'll kill him quickly. I'll remove him with certainty. I won't misuse any time to think of a plan. Think back. Tomorrow is Watanagashi, isn't it? Last year, on the night of Watanagashi, her aunt died. Her head was busted open by some deviant, and her brains splattered everywhere. That's it. He's someone who deserves to be given death on the night of Watanagashi. Hey, Oyashiro-sama. Call yourself a guardian. You didn't protect Satoko. Cursing Satoko's family for their damn stuff is your own business. Now you've made Satoko unhappy when she didn't have anything to do with it. I, Keiichi Maibara, hereby announce you, the guardian deity of Hinamizawa, a failure. We don't need you. Go back to the deepest, darkest pit of your shrine this year. Besides, if you had just cursed and killed both their aunt and uncle last year, none of this would have ever happened. The curse this year, it's not on you. I'll be the one deciding. It won't be the three families controlling the serial deaths behind the scenes. No, not some vague people who I can't tell if they're buffoons or not. This time, I'll be the one to deliver divine judgment. So don't get in my way. Just watch. Stay quiet and watch. I'll obliterate him. I'll wipe him off the face of the earth. I will stomp out his very existence. Go away, disappear, and die. I'll tear your heart apart just like you did to Satoko. I'll have your blood as payment. Brr. Keiichi-kun, are you alright? Rena, Mio and Enrique-chan were looking after me. Had I fallen to the floor? You surprised us. Suddenly fell down. You having a nightmare? You were moaning. Shut it. Quit speaking at me like that. My friends gave a start and backed away. What? Many others, they exchanged glances unsure of what to say, stood confused for a few moments. At your voice, Keiichi-kun? Of course it was. Reina gulped firmly and opened her mouth. For a second, Keiichi-kun, your eyes were really scary. My eyes? Probably just a trick of the light. Don't waste my time. I'm not mistaken. I've never seen those kind of eyes before. What are these guys talking about? They've all been too scared of me lately. You are Keiichi Maibara-kun, right? Was Reina saying. Who else do I look like except Keiichi Maibara? The look I gave her seemed to speak quite eloquently to those irritated thoughts. She understood and quickly apologized. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. The eyes, huh? Oh, wait. Does that mean Okay, so this time we're getting it. Okay, okay. So I think that the whole bit with the eyes when he came back, I think, and why they're like things like scare or whatever, is so because previously, like since we've been going from Keiji's perspective, we always see when people go like into the murder scary mode or whatever. We've always been doing that from like looking at them from the outside perspective. But I think what's happening now is that the game's putting it to where it's the other way around. So where it's letting us experience like someone who's gotten to that state of mind that we've seen people like flip into or whatever, or they even act like other people from like in the previous games or whatever, in the previous chapters. So we're now getting the other end of that, or we're it's become inverted. Okay, I think that's what they're trying to do, and that's why they made a big deal about like they had that explain about the eyes, and then even like you're cagey, right? Because in the previous times, whenever someone would go that, even like previously, Keiichi would be like, "That's not Reino, or that's not Armion, or whatever." Emergency. June 18th, 1983. News regarding Satoko Haojo urgent. We propose that Satoko Haojo must be taken into immediate custody based on the items below. 1. Family situation. Life of adopted father who recently returned to Hinamizawa has already turned disastrous. He is currently subject to an unendurable physical and mental abuse from the father. 2. Child Consultation Center's response. Child probation officer was dispatched yesterday, the 17th, from the prefectural welfare office, but because of the 77 case, changed to continued coaching and cautionary action. Fortunately, the consultation office it does not properly understand the situation. Status of the concerned child. Child already appears to be suffering from an outbreak of something close to neurosis or manic depression. If her unstable pubescent mind is negatively stimulated by stress, it will put her development of a healthy body and mind at risk. Cannot be allowed to continue from a humane standpoint. 4. Allegations made to the family court. We propose, based on the above items, that Satoko Haojo should immediately be taken into protective custody. He should be secured temporarily under the emergency allegations to the family court under Article 28. We request emergency coordination between all related agencies. Hey, so someone filed filed a report. Ah. So someone's currently doing something. Police, maybe? Oh, I don't think it would. Some other third party. It seems to be a group. D23, number 44. Fuku Jisho, D23, number 44, 1977. Child name, Satoko Haojo. Residence, Hinamizawa, Shishibone. Consultation circum. Telephone SOS from child of child abuse. Information. Okay, so this is the older, that first case. Child claims she's being physically abused by her adoptive father. Family structure, like marks abusers. Adoptive father, real mother, older brother, child in question. Adoptive father and real mother entered family registry in 19. Child is the daughter of the mother's previous husband. Child Consultation Center's response. Day of the child's telephone consultation. Center called the child's school and asked of her situation. On that day, the child welfare officer on duty visited the child's house and conducted an interview. The adopted father sincerely listened to her instruction, agreed to take child raising workshops in the city from now on. Part of the suggested coaching, the center will continue to observe the situation. Other notes. Result of numerous counseling sessions at the city's education consultation office regarding the child, we learned there was a high possibility the cause of the child's excessive distrust towards her adoptive father was a result of a lack of communication. The abuse she claimed hadn't actually taken place. She had made a false report to distance herself from her adoptive father. Below was a note written in pencil by the person on duty at the time. The problem appeared to be more with the daughter. Chief Investigator F of the city's education consultation office said that most of her stories of abuse were likely fabrications. They decided to shift the focus of their coaching to the child. Be cautious not to take everything the child says as truth. I gotta go after the just a couple moments. I will be right back. Gesture.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Oh. Hey, VN, look at man. Okay. 1, 2, 4, 6, 9, 10. We check. How you doing? I haven't seen you, sir, in a year. I I see what you did there. We're doing good, thank you. Okay. Me and the others, having to set up for the Watanagashi festival or something, invited me along, but I refused. Of course I did. How could they be taking it easy and setting up for a festival in this situation? Mion had a lot of nerve. The first thing I did when I got back was take a shower. Not because I wanted to wash off sweat. It was because I wanted to be even calmer. I already understood this, but killing that man would be so very easy. The really hard thing would be not getting arrested for it. We could get our peaceful days back. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't easy. Japan's police force have the highest arrest rate in the world. I would need to to deceitfully pull off the perfect crime, and it couldn't be a half-hearted attempt. Still, it wasn't 100%. Even the best police force in the world couldn't have a 100% arrest rate. I've read a lot of articles on trials with people brought up on false charges. They do a lot to determine whether they really were false accusations, but figuring out who the real criminal was is usually out of the question. And that meant perfect crimes did exist. In fact, perfect crimes were sort of like works of art. They could even be respected and revered. You just had to look at the inundation of mystery novels everywhere throughout history. They dealt with all sorts of difficult-to-solve incidents, involving secret rooms and alibis and stuff, but they all wanted to show one thing. They wanted to show the beauty of a perfect crime. There was something divine in the flawlessness of the word perfect. Yes, perfect crimes were skills of the gods. And in that sense, serial freak deaths they were calling the curse of Oishiro-sama. I understood. They must have been the works of gods. Each one appeared to have been resolved, but they couldn't stop it from happening every year. Yeah, skills belonging only to gods. Those are perfect crimes. I would be setting up my own crime before Oyashiro-sama's series of perfect crimes, 4 years in the running. Or to put it boldly, I was challenging a god. Foolhardiness would be needed to make the decision, but I needed to be calm, cool, colder than ice to put that plan together. Kill him like a flame, but as systematic as ice. Starting now, I needed to retain both of those ideas within me. Modeling my crime after a mystery novel wasn't actually a bad thing to focus on. Sometimes, kidnappings involving disturbing original methods that made it into the newspaper were used as basis for novels after the person was arrested. Stuff like that made it into the news. Day and night, for a very long time, mystery novel authors polished and refined their most fantastic artistic crimes. Imitating that could be a short cycle, playing the perfect crime in a short period of time. Of course, I haven't read enough mystery novels to act all high and mighty about them. The one who really liked mystery novels, my mom. She'd read every well-known mystery novel from overseas, from past and present. Every time she watched mystery shows, she would always criticize them having cheap tricks or being poorly thought out. I wonder what the perfect crime would mean to her. What do I think the most well-done perfect crime in all the mystery novels I've read is? Yeah, well, you read quite a lot of them, right? I figured you might know a lot about them. It's more fun to read them to find out. If I told you all the tricks right off the bat, they'd be no fun anymore. Wasn't like I was asking for my own amusement. He was deflecting the question. I would somehow butter up first and draw out an answer. Of course, Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is my top recommendation. And Murder on the Orient Express used some great bold tricks too, of course. Didn't see it coming at all. Didn't want to know which novels you liked. Want to know about the trick that made you the most surprised. If it was really a perfect trick, detectives wouldn't be able to solve the case, though. It's true. Then there'd be no point. Mystery novels are enjoyable because of the process of the mysteries getting solved. If it was unsolvable, it wouldn't make a very good topic for a novel. I get it. Yeah, you're right. The main character can't solve it. It wouldn't be much of a story. Huh. Being too simplistic? A mystery novel is basically a game. They were written so that you can get to the goal, that you could solve them. But I couldn't use something so optimistic. It needed to be the be-all, end-all of tricks so that we could, without a doubt, return to our old lives. And by the way, Kiichi, you understand that truly perfect crimes don't even become stories? Mom looked at me intellectually and grinned impishly. I never got to read it, but apparently one time a long time ago, Mom had written her own mystery novel and submitted it for some mystery novel award. Apparently she was really into it. Don't even become stories. What does that mean? Keiichi, what are the essential parts of a story? A beginning, a middle, and an end? Correct. The beginning, of course, is especially important. There is no beginning, the story never starts. Well, yeah. Nothing happened, nothing would begin. Right. Nothing happened. There wouldn't even be an incident. Detectives wouldn't be called, so there wouldn't be any mystery. There would be no mystery, so there would be no solution. In other words, it would be the ultimate perfect crime. Wait a second. You explain that again? My mom just told me something absurd. And she was saying it so smoothly, so I kind of tuned her out, but she said something extremely important just now. It's not really that difficult to understand. The incident just has to never come to light, that's all. Just has to never come to light. For example, how about this? Say there's an old man living deep in a forest nobody goes into. Uh-huh. And one day the old man gets killed by an axe. Let's say the criminal was the old man's son. Went to the old man's house and they were drinking together, but they got into a fight and he killed them. An extremely cheap plot. It was an impulsive crime without a bit of planning. Pretty far from a perfect crime. But Keiichi, the house was really, really deep in this forest. So deep in the mountains that nobody would ever go out that far. Then his son would go back to town and say that the old man was doing fine. What about that as a perfect crime? Keiichi, this incident would only begin when it was found out that the old man was killed. If nobody ever visited the old man's house after that, that beginning would never occur. The beginning would never occur. So basically, the story wouldn't start. The incident wouldn't come to light, and they wouldn't call in detectives. And nobody would be suspicious in the first place, so there'd be no mystery. They'd think that the old man was still living by himself deep in the forest. The old man's face would appear in the sky, and that would be it. Oh, thank you for the head pat, Sophie. Thank you so much. Something like that, you know. That's amazing. That's a pretty great trick. Oh, thank you for the fluid check. But it wouldn't be a novel. Mystery novels are for entertainment, after all. They can't be instruction manuals for perfect crimes. I was trying hard to talk cheerfully to fool her, but inside I was excited. Special tools, strange geography, mysterious drugs, traps involving huge sums of cash. None of them were needed for perfect crimes. The important thing was that there wasn't a beginning. As long as the incident didn't come to light, it would be fine. Speaking broadly, if I could kill him without anyone finding out, and dispose of the corpse somewhere no one could find, would basically already be a perfect crime. Of course, if someone up and vanished one day all of a sudden, it would get suspicious. But that didn't apply to this man. Last year, after their aunt died, he ran away from the village in fear of Oyashiro-sama. When the night of Watanagashi came around again, everyone would have to think ran away in fear again. I mean, he had been living with a lover of his in town. No matter what it felt like when he vanished, no one would be suspicious. People hated him after all. No one would care where he went if he disappeared. When I thought about it like that, it got easier and easier to imagine killing him. There was no point in thinking inside my house anymore. I left, getting my bike out of the garage. Now it didn't matter where I was going. I just rode through the wind, trying to calm my excitement by feeling the cool air on my body. Where I'd kill him, how would I do it, what time, how to dispose of the corpse. If I just had those 4 things, I could get a good plan going. I was so surprised at how little there was to decide that I shivered. I'd been completely prepared to build this humongous plan over a really long period of time. But if I could just get these little things in order, I could put it into motion. Today was Saturday. I'd have to kill him on the night of Watanagashi. So as long as I was standing in for Oyashiro-sama, I only had 24 hours remaining. Toko, just hang on. 24 more hours. I can't even imagine having to suffer through even more, but please, hold out for a little longer. I know you can't even last another second. I know that. Please, just hold out. Your Nini will save you for sure. Outside, it was still early enough for the cicadas to be crying. Early afternoon. Evening was still a long way off. I looked at the sky. At some point, it had gotten cloudy. Come to think of it, as I left the house, I heard on the TV that the weather forecast calling for a chance of rain on Sunday. The sky was the color of lead. If I heard a little bit of thunder, I'd definitely have expected a sudden evening shower. This does not sound like happy fun time music. My first destination was school. Before explaining why I was going there, I need to explain what method for killing that man I had decided on. I decided that the most suitable death, the one I needed to give him, was the same as last year's curse, the same as the punishment their aunt had received, being beaten to death. Wouldn't beating him to death be somewhat unreliable? You may think that stabbing him with a blade would be more reliable. This was something I had chosen after a lot of thought. Just needed to think realistically. The law, it prohibited carrying any blades longer than 10 centimeters, I think. So the blades available to me, though long enough, were limited to things shorter than a ruler. You can probably understand how tricky it would be with such a short reach to go up against an opponent that might fight back. In that case, using a weapon with reach would be far more effective. It might not have the same precision, but you just had to hit the guy until you killed him. Both options resulted in death. That settled, it is the weapon with the most terrifying force behind it. It is also easy to carry around. By this point, you should immediately think of a metal baseball bat. Because it's peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly, peanut butter jelly with a baseball bat. That was bad, I apologize. I don't need to explain how terrifying a metal baseball bat can be as a weapon. Special note is the fact that you can carry one around in broad daylight and not be thought of as suspicious. And just those two options would have been enough to choose a metal bat for my weapon. But there was one more reason for choosing a metal bat in particular. I will speak about it later. After school that Saturday, my classmates were still having fun playing in the schoolyard. I could show up there and it would be the same as always, so nobody will think I'm suspicious. Seeing my hands on the weapon without looking suspicious was actually a factor I couldn't ignore. I didn't normally play baseball, so if I went to a sports store looking for a metal bat, it would definitely be suspicious. I can't let there be a beginning to the story, so I needed to be really careful even about that. That left school. At a location at which my appearance wouldn't be suspicious, I would acquire the weapon. I checked inside the classroom through the window, but of course there was nobody there. The only students who would stay in there were me and the others when doing club activities. Without us, the classroom after school was just an empty, unused room. Without glancing around nervously, as if I'd just gone to get something I'd forgotten, I casually went in the entrance. It looked like the teacher was busy with paperwork in the teacher's lounge. I didn't see her in the hallway. Naturally, it quickly as a shadow, I entered the classroom. The empty room was full of a strange, stagnant air that you couldn't feel normally. An empty classroom with nobody here. Maybe while no one was around, desks creep about of their own accord, licking the floors clean of dirt. That's an image. Hope everyone has fun streaming about that tonight. Yeah. Desk creeping about licking floors. I suddenly stepped into a place like that. Would the desk in their surprise fly at me, crush my bones, and eat me alive? Oh, and then there's that. Just add that. That's ridiculous. I felt regret at wasting valuable thinking time on stupid illusions. The students' lockers were lined up in the back of the classroom. The one I was looking for wasn't my own. It was a forbidden locker, one I had accidentally discovered one year. One day, here it is. Howjo. This has to be it. One person has one locker, then why would only Satoko have two? I had made a fuss about it once. After that, I learned it was Satoshi's locker, and he had the same last name as her. But of course, even though it was a locker for a student no longer here, looking inside it was still a shameless act. One time, I let my curiosity get the better of me and took a peek inside. Inside, it was average and worthless. At the time, I hadn't been interested, so until now I'd forgotten what had been in it. Now I had, dare I say it, awakened. I remembered the thing that had been there. Scrape. I opened the locker. Stench of mold and sweat wafted out, like a gym storehouse that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. My face puckered up at the stench, but I looked for it. Yes. Satoshi was on Coach's baseball team. Inside the locker was the Hinamizawa fighter's uniform, and it. The one Satoshi used. Metal bat. This was the reason I wanted to choose this bat. This murder would be carried out by me, but this wasn't originally my role. It was Satoshi's. But I would stand in for him and call myself Satoko's Nini. It was one of the rules for standing in for him. I reached for the metal bat and grasped it firmly. It was light, and yet its tip had enough head in it, enough to easily imagine the horror if I had brought it down with all my might. Satoshi, I'll give you one last chance to save your sister. Lend me your strength. You're a coward. I will stand in for you. So if you still care even a little bit about her, will lend me your strength. There's no more suitable weapon in the world for putting that man to death than your bat. Now, I just need to figure out where to hide it. Tomorrow, before the act, I would just stop by the school and grab it, because I couldn't ignore the possibility someone would see me bringing it home and think it was strange. But if I left it here, there wouldn't be a problem. Plus, tomorrow was Sunday. Not only that, it was the day of the biggest festival in the whole village. Nobody would be coming to school. I left out the entrance and went over to a construction vehicle parked nearby. We'd been warned by our teacher not to touch it just for laughs, so none of the kids would come near the vehicle either. They wouldn't, because if she found out they touched it, they'd be in huge trouble. I quietly hid it in the shadow of the vehicle. Chances of someone operating the vehicle tomorrow were slim to none, because tomorrow was Sunday. Government workers had the day off, and, from what my classmates had said, the thing had been left here for years now. Machines that haven't been moved in years. You can't just suddenly start them up again. So I was almost definitely fine in this case. The sunlight was piercingly hot. My head grew faint for a moment. The heat, this harsh for the entire day. A moment of dull thoughts like this, a moment of carelessness. Gave myself a couple hits in the head and looked around warily. Okay, how to dispose of the corpse. Okay, you dig a large hole vertically. Let's see. So go dig a hole vertically about 9 feet. I think that's 9 feet deep. Actually, 12 would be better. Yeah. Vertically. So then you lay the body upwards. Then put dirt, add some. Then you cover the body. Put a little bit on it or whatever for a while. But then you bury it under 3 feet. 3 feet. A dead animal carcass. Then you bury that. On top of that, you find an endangered plant. And then you put it on top of that. So one, it would be people wouldn't disturb the area, or because of the plant. It's an endangered plant, so you couldn't just mess with it. And two, if body-seeking dogs happened to go by it, they would come across the animal carcass, which would lead people to think that the reason the dogs were going crazy was just they had to come across a dead animal. And then they would just leave it alone, leaving the body, causing them not to dig any further. So see, or if there was an active volcano, you could always just eat a corpse in that. That's just me. It was part of an internet meme, okay? Come on, everyone's thought about, like, what the perfect way to hide a body. It's all on the list of things, like, what if I would do if I was attacked by a bear or something? Did very well thought. I know it. Okay. Disposing of the corpse. The ultimate way not to create a beginning was to not let the corpse be found. It was even more important than killing him. Thinking on it vaguely, the first thing that came to mind was the swamp. Onigafuchi. The dreadful bottomless swamp, revered even now, that appeared in the legends of the Onigafuchi village. Yes, the swamp called Onigafuchi was here first, and then the village took its name to become Onigafuchi Village. In other words, this swamp was the origin of Onigafuchi Village. Pigs, but gotta remove the nails or whatever. Oh, yep, that would. Go, what was that? Was that was in the book Hannibal. No one, no matter who it was, would float back to the surface of this bottomless swamp. Everyone would be swallowed down into the land of the demons below the earth. That was how the stories went. If I was trying to copy Oyashiro-sama's curse, then I felt that theory demanded I discard the remains of the weapons into the swamp. But, may have said it's bottomless, but I didn't actually know. People say large creatures like humans produce a lot of gas when they rot, granting a lot of buoyancy. It is why using fairly heavy objects to hold them people down didn't work. Come to think of it, the curse the year before last, Rika-chan's mother drowned herself in the swamp. And the criminal behind the dismemberment went missing the year of the first curse too. It was rumored he tried to discard the body in the swamp and accidentally drowned in it. I never heard of the corpse coming back up, or him finding it. And shouldn't I choose to discard the corpse there too? Discard the weapon there. Then, for example, her uncle came out on a motorcycle and attacked. It'd be convenient to get rid of the bike too. Knew that Satoko's uncle generally used a motorcycle for transportation. As for the corpse, after a lot of worrying, I decided not to discard the corpse in the swamp. The drowning, suicide, and accident were both rumors. Nobody knew if they'd actually happened. There were no lack of false rumors about the drowning suicide anyway. It was possible the murderer hadn't drowned there and was still on the run. That meant no one had ever confirmed a corpse being dropped in there, and then not coming back up. Then, what would I do with the body? I thought it might be interesting to go with the first incident, cut him to pieces and hide him, but the preparation and work for dismembering a human body would be difficult given the amount of time I had. That out of question, I arrived at the conclusion, go with the more orthodox method of burying the body. Where would I bury it? Was a question related to where I would kill him. Of course, I wanted to keep my time and proximity to the body at a minimum. That in mind, I would want to dig the hole to dump the body in beforehand, to make the location of the act and the hole close together. The choice of where to plan the crime that I needed to be absolutely careful and thorough with. It had to be somewhere nobody would witness it, a place with hiding places for a sneak attack. I could dig a hole for the body right there, go over the possibilities in my head of various destinations Uncle would head to from Toko's house. I imagined a map of the area in my head, and I found a place that filled those conditions so easily. It was almost unbelievable. A bit of a back road that went through the woods. I didn't think her uncle would go deeper into the mountains of Gauchi on a whim. If he was going somewhere, he'd pass through these woods first. Nobody used this back way unless they had something to do at Satoko's house. One or two other places. This path was fantastically ideal, as few people used it. I would wait for him in these woods. Would an ambush actually be possible? I went into the trees and tried really hiding myself in a few places. It was extremely quiet. My senses could have sharpened there to their maximum amount. I didn't know when he'd come, but I'd wait right here for Satoko's uncle. I actually had some trouble coming to that decision. The question of what arose of whether I should somehow call the man out. Was there a risk I'd be taking by luring him here? The man made Satoko do all the shopping and errands. He seldom left on his own business. Wouldn't leave unless I worked out a plan to force him to, would he? That was the question. Tomorrow was the Wachinagashi festival. Would he go out for the festival, or would he stay inside? If he stayed inside, how would I drag him out of his house? That's right. Didn't he make Satoko go to the festival? Satoko would go to the festival. Meanwhile, I would call the man. This is the Okinomiya police station. We have the lady from your house. Could you come and pick her up immediately? It didn't even have to be the police. This is the clinic. The young lady from your house has been injured. Please come and pick her up. Yes, that would work too. If I claimed to be the police or the hospital, told him to come up and then hung up on him, he'd rush there trying to figure out what was going on, wouldn't he? Just the other day, he was visited by a probation officer. He wouldn't suddenly grumble about having to get his niece and not go. It would look like child neglect. The man had no skills useful around the house. Satoko, his slave, was an essential part of his daily life. Conclusion? If he went out to the festival, I would attack him here on his way there or back. If he didn't, I would lure him out by phone. If luring him out by phone was my first step, I needed to be sure Satoko would go to the festival leaving the house. It would be convenient if I could make Mio take Satoko to the festival. She said her aunt was a district welfare officer. In other words, an ally to the probation officer. If I somehow incited Mio to take Satoko to the festival with her, well, being who she was, she'd use that fact to get her there. Satoko should just take a break and have fun at the festival with everyone. She should have a good time, reminisce on our former peaceful days, and when she went home, everything would be over. Yeah, that would be the best outcome. That decided I needed to dig a hole somewhere in the woods to hide the body. But wouldn't stand out. It wouldn't be found. Someplace nobody would see me while I was completely exposed as I buried the corpse. I had wanted it to be close to the scene of the crime, but it naturally grew farther away. Deep in the bosom of the Black Forest, the voices of the Higurashi were the only sounds here, informing me that people shouldn't indiscreetly set foot in this place. Digging a hole, huh? Digging a hole with so many tree roots crawling around the ground would be far more difficult than I'd envisioned. I snuck a gardening spade out there in my bag. That wouldn't be enough. Still, as I looked into various approaches, I managed to find a place I could dig into. Tomorrow I'd bring a real shovel from the storeroom at home. I'd manage with that. I wondered how big a hole it'd have to be to fit a human all the way into it. Probably have to dig pretty deep down. If I was slipshod in these efforts, I'd let a beginning occur. I absolutely couldn't allow that. Use any amount of time you need to. Mustn't spare any effort to utterly erase him. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was a little past 6. So it's probably all that's going to get done here for today. Oop. I really wanted to dig the hole in advance tonight, even if it got dark out, but Mom would be upset if I stayed out that late. Wouldn't be good to come off as suspicious to my parents. I need to go back home and give Mion a call soon. I need to get her to promise Satoko to take her by tonight. After that, today would be done. Done. Would it be, though? This really everything I could do to prepare right now? I decided where to kill him. I decided how to kill him. I decided, of course, how to dispose of the body. I didn't decide on a time, but I would play that by ear. I didn't have a way to decide that. That really all? This really all right? If I overlooked anything? This really go how I planned? After all this, worries started welling up one after another. It was only natural I'd be anxious. This would be the first and last big job of my lifetime. Could not allow failure. I had no experience as this was my first time. I didn't have the know-how, the knack. So it was only natural I'd be anxious. Dark clouds of unease told me doing nothing would be the easiest way. A truly pathetic suggestion this late in the game. I'd forgotten how miserable Satoko looked. From the outside, it may have looked like I was resolute. Deep in my heart, my knees were shaking loudly. I never actually won a single fight to my satisfaction. Did I really kill someone? I may have been planning on an ambush, but my enemy was large and far older than me. He had a scary face, and he looked like he was well accustomed to fighting. I have the pieces before and after the murder were perfectly planned. But was the actual murder the most important part, one unsettled me the most? All my preparations, all of my perfectly concealed machinations. If I didn't successfully murder him, they amounted to nothing. Damn it. After coming this far, you're pathetic, Keiichi Maibara. You start to have these kinds of second thoughts, your ulterior motive will be obvious. Let's go home. Go home and calm your mind. Tomorrow will be a juncture in your life, the likes of which graduation, employment, marriage, and childbirth couldn't hold a candle to. Day of murder. Kill someone, for someone else's sake. That day behind us would take it back again. Those mild spring-like days we never thought would stop. Those safe, peaceful, fun times. I pedaled my bicycle hard to get back home. I felt somehow unsteady, like my body and soul weren't in alignment. A subtle shift between where the tips of my hands and feet really were, where I felt them to be. My vision was a little distant and narrow, as if the great barrier I risked my future life on had nothing to do with me. An unreal sensation. How could I put it? Everything was so far away. Fine. Feel your unease permeate you, Keiichi. That will turn your timidity into meticulousness, allow you to act with greater caution. Then it's actually an important emotion to feel. This feeling I had never went away that night. The first time I'd be calling to Mion's house. I searched for her on the phone book school gave me, then dialed a short phone number, kind unique to remote places. It was around dinner time. Would probably be home. But just as I started to think nobody would respond, someone finally picked up the receiver. Hello, this is Sonozaki. Oh, I'm sorry for calling so late at night. Is this Mion? Huh? May I ask who's calling? It's me, Keiichi. The phone ringing in this game is so convincing, it always throws me off. Yeah, I was actually thinking similar. It really does. Especially because I have headphones on, so... I've had a couple times where I'm like, huh? Oh, wait, game. Okay. Huh? What? It's like if you're watching a movie and it's like this... Even though the phone in the game has that very has very like early 2000s. There's that very like home phone, like 90s to early 2000s sound to it, or they're like a digital one. It just like the platonic ideal of phone ringing sound. Oh, Kate-chan, it's pretty late. What's up? You want to have a home phone, but it still gets... Yeah, I don't... She seemed to be in a weirdly good mood, and she drew her syllables out. Right. It's the night before tomorrow's festival, so she's probably with her family having some drinks. Sorry for the late call. Do you have time right now? Sure, what is it? It's about Satoko. I heard her drawing a small breath on the other end. Toko, he's in a pretty bad spot. Hope she's okay. The scent of sake had completely disappeared from her voice. Can't be okay. Saw too, didn't you? Was she what she was like? He was completely worn out from all the abuse. Failed her all the time, and now she's become like that. He didn't fail her. Everyone tried their hardest to help her. If we didn't come up with anything, we couldn't save her. In the end, we couldn't do anything about it. Now she's become like that. Yes, you're right. All I did was watch after all. So well, at least... Didn't we at least let her have fun for one night? Huh? Let her have fun? She's been so battered lately, you understand. That's why. I want you to take her. The Watanagashi festival tomorrow. I don't mind. But why? Why? I want to give her a breather. At least for the festival night, you know? Even if it's just one night. If she can get away from her evil uncle. I think she'll be happy. Even if it's only for a little while. Yes, but why? Why? Why what? I was having a little difficulty understanding what Mion was asking. Why ask her? Why? Well, I mean, why don't you bring her, Kei-chan? Why do you need to ask me to do it? Leon was persistent about odd things. No, maybe better to say that she was sharp. Well, actually, I have something to do tomorrow. I can't make it to the festival, so I wanted you to take Satoko there for me. Something to do? It's nothing major. I'll probably finish quickly, but I not be able to meet up with you all tomorrow. Hey, Mion? Can I leave Satoko to you? Just for tomorrow night. Mion took a long time to give her reply. I got the feeling that Mion had been acting weird for a while now, like she was flustered by emotions or something. No. Huh? Is that a sob? Mion? Crying? I said no. I don't want to. I don't want you to push this onto someone like me. I'm not trying to push anything onto you. Just for tomorrow night. That was a lie. What? Mion, what's she talking about? Saying it's just for the night of Watanagashi. And then it was forever. Liar. Wait. Is she talking about Satoshi? I guess we're even, huh? I couldn't keep the promise I made with you. I left her alone. Alone all this time. I had no idea what to say to that. Anne was clearly now talking to someone other than me. I didn't know who. All I could do was listen to her in a daze. You never came back after that. Now you called me again. To push her onto me. So unfair. Hey, you're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? Oh, I called it. Mion, what are you talking about? When I said her name, whatever spell was on Mion was released. I'm sorry. It's nothing. It's just that I got a phone call a lot like one you're making now a long time ago. Was it from Satoshi? Mion didn't answer. All I could hear were sobs coming through the receiver. Sorry. I think I'm still a little tipsy. I got all weirdly emotional. Sorry, I probably scared you. I had no idea how it happened, but I was pretty sure that last year, on this very day, Satoshi had called Mion and told her to bring Satoko to the festival. And when she asked why he needed her to do it, he replied the same way I just. Satoshi didn't go to the festival, did he? Yeah. Said he had something to do and couldn't make it. He told me to take Satoko there in his place. I don't like this. At the time, Satoshi said it too, didn't he? That he'd leave Satoko to you? Yeah, he did. It's for tomorrow night. The way you said it. It's just like how he did. I just got a little upset, caught up in a memory and all. Didn't expect this. Toshi had given her the exact same phone call 1 year ago today. Mion kept going after that. That he was lying. That he told her it would only be for the night of the festival. I get it. A few days later, Satoshi, he disappeared. It might have been a rather vague way to put it. Whether he ran away or not, Toshi left, abandoning Satoko. Yes, didn't transfer, run away from home, disappeared. And then an idea far more indistinct than even fog crossed my mind. Satoshi made the exact same phone call as me last year. Why would Satoshi make the exact same call? Because I think he may have done. Maybe it wasn't some random dude that actually killed the ant. If, in the truest sense, he really made the exact same phone call as I am right now, and the incident where their aunt was beaten to death, did it? Satoshi, huh? What was that? Last year, Satoko had been constantly abused by our uncle's wife. Their aunt, too. Her aunt had abused her the most. On that night, in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse, he was taken from this world. If I thought about that, everything made perfect sense, didn't it? Last year, Toko's aunt was beaten to death, wasn't she? It'd be impossible for Satoshi to have... No, but that would mean... But then, Satoshi, he was a coward who abandoned Satoko and ran away, wasn't he? Satoshi resolved himself to kill a person. Save Satoko. It was unthinkable. I actually considered that as well. Oh, being mean to Satoshi. A few days later, he disappeared on Satoko's birthday. When I first heard it, I flew into a rage. What a cruel day to have run away on. But now that I thought about it like this, the story changed completely. Satoshi had probably been even less calm than I was now. He was her big brother, related by blood, watching his little sister be abused day in and day out. Maybe that's why he couldn't keep calm. That was why the corpse of their aunt, beaten to death, was so easily discovered. Satoshi lost himself in his anger and hadn't hidden the corpse. Permitted a beginning to occur. If the police conducted a full-blown investigation, it was easy to imagine they wouldn't take long to pin down Satoshi as the culprit. Satoshi, he wished for a return to peaceful days with Satoko. Though he achieved it for a time, he had been steadily driven into a corner. And then, wanted to at least hold out until Satoko's birthday. Finally, they nailed him. At the time, Satoshi had been carrying the savings he'd amassed to buy Satoko a giant stuffed animal for a birthday present. He would buy the stuffed animal as her gift and then get caught. Or he could use the money and disappear. It was the choice he had been forced to make. And he decided not to make Satoko the sister of a murderer. If that was the case, then it must have been an unspeakably bitter decision. All that money he'd saved wanting to see Satoko happy, he had to use it to make her sad. And he used the savings, disappeared to Tokyo, that the rumors were true. Was that how Satoshi disappeared? I don't know. That Oishi guy seems to think that way, though. Oishi. Had he been slowly driven into a corner by that repulsive man's pig-headed pursuit? The circumstantial evidence is all there. I think your deduction is wrong. They caught some crazy drug addict somewhere in the prefecture. He apparently turned himself in for the crime. That was right. The deviant had confessed, and the incident was solved. They said he really was just a crazy person, that he had no ties to Hinamizawa, and no relationship with Satoshi, of course. I mean, I have a pretty hard time believing the guy would lie in Satoshi's place. Couldn't just arbitrarily decide like that. You never know where or how humans are tied together. If that guy took the blame, then it was the perfect crime. Of course, if it was really a perfect crime, there would have been no reason for Satoshi to vanish. Plus, I don't think Satoshi had the kind of money to run away. That day, he withdrew all his savings. No matter who I tell this to, nobody believes me, but that stuffed animal he said he was buying for Satoko was gone from the display. Sold. It must have been Satoshi. Wait a minute. He didn't use the money to flee and bought the stuffed animal instead. He would have gone back to Satoko, wouldn't he? It seems unbelievable he'd buy it and then disappear without having given it to her. Yeah. So, now I don't know what happened. It would be one thing if he had the money, but if he used all his savings on it, he'd be totally broke. Can't live a life on the run without money in this world. I didn't get it. For all that, I was understanding Satoshi less and less. Two of us fell silent. I don't remember how we even got on this topic. Sorry. I think we got off topic. Toko Rat. Don't worry. I actually already invited her. Huh? You serious? When everyone went to the shrine to prepare for the festival, we started talking about getting Satoko to the festival itself. Then I used the phone at the assembly hall to invite her. Her uncle was acting distant, didn't seem to care at all, but in any case, we got the okay from him. We decided to all meet up and go together tomorrow. You okay with that, Satoshi? I'm not Satoshi. I was a little relieved. I hadn't needed to make the phone call. Toko had already been invited to the festival, and not in a way that smelled the blood. Way to leave her uncle alone to create time for me to kill him. They purely wanted Satoko to enjoy herself, so they invited her. In the end, it was the same. I was happy for that slight difference. Sorry, I guess I didn't need to call then. First yesterday and now today. Sorry for, saying such weird things. Just forget about it. No, I'm the one who should apologize. Losing it like that isn't me. I'm really sorry. We apologize to each other for a bit. Alright, I'll be going now. Good night. What did you have to do? As if interrupting our party words, Mion stuck straight where it hurt. Or is it like with Satoshi, where you can't say? Stupid. Keep telling you I'm not Satoshi. Yeah, I know that. I deflected her, a response that wasn't really an answer. Mion didn't hound me anymore after that. Right. This time for real. Good night. I don't know why you're giving me the same phone call as Satoshi-kun did, but... yeah. Never mind. I'm sorry. Good night. I'm hanging up. Click. Satoshi Haojo. Just who are you? I scorned you as a coward who ran away, abandoning his sister. I always thought you didn't have the right to call yourself her Nini. But now I didn't know what to think. Yashiro-sama's curse on the 4th year, their aunt's death, and Satoshi's disappearance. Now, me, trying to carry out Yashiro-sama's curse on the 5th. Oddly enough, what was I going to do? Overlap perfectly with Satoshi, day before the curse. No, that wasn't all. We start, back from Satoko being abused, and I'd been overlapping with Satoshi for days already. When I talked to Mion before, he asked me if I was Satoshi. That was the first impression a third party like Mion got, and it was probably true. Then, as Satoshi had accomplished, I would succeed in the murder. But that was to the extent to which we overlapped. I was far calmer than Satoshi, and more calculating. I could actually grow calmer the more enthusiastic I became. That's why I wouldn't follow in Satoshi's footsteps. I would snip him cleanly out of the world. Then, get our peaceful life back. Maybe Satoshi has been with me ever since I chose to use Satoshi's bat as my weapon. No, maybe even longer than that. When I decided I'd be her Nini, maybe Satoshi had been residing within me then too. Satoshi, you really a coward? Or are you a true Nini, even now, the kind worthy of Satoko's love? I'd never met him, never spoken to him, didn't even know his face, and yet I felt so connected to him. Never felt that way before. Receive new tips for the attention of those on the housewife slaughter incident. July 1982. Okinomiya Police Station, 1st Investigative Division, Chief Takasugi. Prefecture Police Headquarters for the Eradication of Drug-Related Crime. Shishibone Branch Head. Regarding incident designated as Undercover Investigation. This message to inform you that a section of testimony records of an incident under this police headquarters jurisdiction has been found that is thought to be related to the undercover investigation of the incident in question. During investigation of suspect who was arrested for possession of illegal drugs, there was testimony relating to the crime in question. Part of it, we learned that the criminal had information only he could have known. Therefore, this record of testimony, duplicate attached, will be provided to you. If his testimony is to be believed, there is an extremely high chance that suspect, the culprit behind the incident in question. In addition, the head investigator on the case received this report and inquired as to the incident within the Okinomiya police station. But the responsible party at Okinomiya Station, who responded to the designated undercover investigation announced by the Prefectural Police's General Director on July 1st, 1982, Samu Fusukane misunderstood and did not explain the incident's existence to the head investigator on the case properly. Because of this, the case head investigator was not aware of the importance of the testimony as it related to the case in question, and as a result, was negligent when combing the scene. We apologize for having left it in the dark until now. In addition, there is a postscript stating that suspect died while in confinement yesterday on that's very suspicious. Because there's no way Satoshi could have just... So, because if Satoshi killed the aunt, then... then there wouldn't have been... It still leaves the issue of how we got that, of why that other guy confessed to it. Wouldn't have gotten anything out of it. He'd just get more trouble. It's not like Satoshi couldn't, like, forced him to it. Or at least a regular, somewhat bit like middle school, some 15-year-old, 15-year-old kid or whatever. So that leaves the question of who made them? Who made the guy confess? The fact that the guy died in custody. It's all very sus, folks. Okay. Any chapter? I wonder if there's like. Of. But I can never remember the Okay. Tatarigoroshi. Okay. 12 chapters in total. Which means we're getting very close to the end. Okay. Go on for a little bit longer. Like for another 30 minutes or so. To a little bit of progress. Because then that means I'll probably be able to wrap up. Okay, next stream. Sunday. The fireworks I heard before noon were probably to announce the opening of the festival. And the weather certainly wasn't festival weather. It was cloudy. The television forecast was calling for possible downpours starting this evening and lasting until around midnight. But as long as it wasn't raining at that moment, the festival would go on. The festival had to open when it began. The Frude Shrine grounds were probably decorated beautifully for the big performance that only happened once a year. Many paper lanterns were hung up, all in the auspicious colors of red and white. The sound of electric motors at the stalls, the voices of kids running around, their happy families watching them, smiling. Today was the festival of Watanagashi. Everyone be partaking in the festivities? About Satoko. Had she forgotten her days of suffering just for a few moments, while smiling that brilliant smile she hadn't in so long? Probably be the longest day of my life. Be the day I would remember vividly for as long as I lived. I told my parents I'd go to the festival this evening and lounged about during the early afternoon. We may have lived under the same roof, but they couldn't help being surprised by the deviation from how I usually spent my time. Glancing at my parents out of the corner of my eye, I went to the front door. I tied my shoes just a little tighter than normal, as if to express the firmness of my resolve in those knots. When I decided to murder Satoko's uncle, I was in such a state of excitement I almost went crazy. And when I was planning out the act of a murder, which went directly against all the morals fostered in me thus far, I was in such a state of calm I almost thought I had lost my emotions. Then, yesterday, when I learned Satoshi had made exactly the same phone call as me, I didn't know how to describe the muddled feelings I had then. And now, entering today, right now, I lacked all the emotions I'd possessed up until now. To make a simple analogy, it was the kind of feeling you might get right after you wake up. You're still half asleep, and you don't feel anything very clearly. I had no anger towards that man, and for the violence he committed against Satoko. Nor did I feel sadness towards or sympathize with her. I felt no discontent towards my friends, who had waited and watched, never reaching out to her with any help, and no nervousness or fear toward the day that had finally come. Yes, right now, I could say I was in the best possible condition for carrying out a murder. When it came down to it, I would probably need to let my violent emotions take control. But, right up until that moment, I would be like an insect. I would slowly, surely, and silently move towards my one objective, and then, when I had my prey, I'd attack like a bullet. There was no emotion in that. Just the creeping mindset insects possessed. That sort of sneaking feeling was just the best. I would kill Satoko's uncle like he was a worm. I had to laugh a little at thinking that way, thinking like an insect. I tightened my laces one more time and walked out the door. I brought the shovel out to the front storeroom. I would need it to dig the man's grave. The shovel was a convenient one made for camping. If I twisted it like so and split it into 3, I could easily hide it in my bag. I twisted the shovel and dismantled it. Even though I'd done it countless times before, I had trouble for some reason, like I was suddenly clumsy now. I knew why. It wasn't because I was nervous. My weak-willed self, deep within me, was hesitant. I knew that the act of dismantling the shovel was the first step I'd taken to becoming a murderer. The last twist was conspicuously difficult, but it finally submitted before the strength of my determination. The air around Satoko's house was outside my circle of activity, but even just riding my bike in the middle of the day like this might seem suspicious to an observant person. I definitely wanted to avoid meeting and talking to someone I knew. In mind, I chose the route to my destination carefully. Didn't mind going the long way around. How long this day would be, I could never be too careful after all. Still, I was fortunate enough not to run across anybody on my way to the planned site of the crime. I wasn't superstitious at this point, but it was a good omen. The place I would dig the hole was in this grove, a little further into the woods. I was worried I might not make it to the same place as before. There was no signs to guide me, but I arrived there smoothly and as expected. I took another look around. Not even a hint of human presence. The air was a little bit damp, but it was comfortable in the cool shade of the trees. I took the disassembled shovel out of my bag and began skillfully putting it together. Then, I stuck the tip of the shovel into a soft-looking patch of ground and pushed on it with my foot. The shovel would split into the earth if I put some strength into that foot. The act of doing so seemed awfully like the point of no return. It made me hesitate. It's just digging a hole with a shovel, but it made me gulp hard. Calm down, Keiichi. Let's do a countdown. Get it done on the count of 3, okay? Alright. 1, 2... I couldn't do it on the countdown, despite it just being sticking the shovel into the ground. I had to count down 5 or 6 times. Damn it. Just digging a hole. This is pathetic. As I thought that, I put strength into my heel like I was stepping on something unpleasant and split. Came the sharp noise. It was only soft at the beginning. Roots and stones quickly got in my way, informing me just how hard it was to dig a big hole big enough for a person. No decent person would ever come here anyway. Maybe it would be enough to cover him up with some dirt. Every time a naive thought like that crept into my mind, I bit down on my teeth and dug even harder. I've dug enough now. I could hide him like this. Every time I thought that, I would go down into the hole, disappointed at how shallow it was, and return to get digging. The thin layer of sweat on my brow eventually formed into drops and fell to the ground. My back was in even worse shape. My damp shirt adhered to my skin, and it felt so disgusting. The things I couldn't stand the most were the mosquitoes. Maybe they were attracted by the scent of my sweat. The white and black striped mosquitoes would cling to me whenever I let my guard down. It was hot. Disgusting. I was sticky. It was itchy. All those uncomfortable feelings surged through me in waves. Damn it all. What are you telling me, to pack up and go home? Is that it? I hadn't yelled at anyone. It was me talking to myself, telling myself something. Why was I feeling this way and digging a hole all the way out here? What benefit would digging this hole give me? What harm would there be in not digging this hole at all? the first place, who ordered me to dig? I thought it over, maybe, ever since grade school, or even before that. My whole life had only been me doing what other people told me to. I didn't mean it was somehow constrained, living a life just based on the commands of others. And I didn't mean I was too lazy to try and find my own road in life. Metaphorically speaking, yes, it was like a road. I'd never been particularly physically fit. I didn't hit puberty very early, and if all my classmates and I got in line, I'd usually be on the shorter end. My score in jump rope competitions and marathons were the very picture of average. It wasn't like the captains of the dodgeball teams would have a passionate rock, paper, scissors contest, see which would get me. During those kindergarten and grade school years, it felt like someone was only worth how fast they grew, how fit they were. Looking back on it now, it was really uncomfortable for me. The thing that turned all that around, just a few words from my mother. Keiichi, would you like to go to a cram school? You'll better grasp what you're learning in school, and it will be more fun. The very first test I took at a cram school was kind of like a game. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't like the test with the same exact problem dozens of times in a row. Every question had a picture to it, almost like one of those puzzle books that came with manga magazines. My studies at school had been like this. It would have been way more fun. Several days later, I went to the cram school again with my mother, the enrollment paperwork. Mom and the person at the cram school had been a really long, heated discussion, so I accidentally dozed off and missed most of what they said, but I clearly remembered one point. Mom had made a loud groan, surprised at something. By 61, do you mean his average score was 61 points? No, not at all, Mrs. Maibara. The mean deviation of our cram schools all across the country is 61. He's showing rare numbers, even if this was just a simplified intelligence examination. First, I would like to say that Keiichi Maibara-kun is extremely bright. Keiichi... But he doesn't have very good grades at school. He has average marks on his report card. B's, C's, D's. There's some kind of mistake? We gave him the Kriplin test as well, and we learned some very interesting things as a result. Maibara-kun is extremely weak when faced with questions that don't have any meaning. He just has no interest in simple, dull questions that don't have to do with everyday life. So, even if he doesn't know what 2 plus 3 is, if you told him he had 2 apples and got 3 more, he would understand that sort of question. And that's right. For example, instead of telling him to draw a flattened, foldable cube, what if we asked him what a die would look like when cut open? If we did that, he could answer beautifully. Then the person from the cram school showed her a page from one of the exams I took. It was a paper with questions about construction. Construction questions were unusual. They were really cool, weren't they? In this question, it asked to draw an unfolded regular... Oh my gosh. Icosahedron, a shape with 20 faces. When we rephrased it, we asked him how he would cut out a piece of cardboard to create a 20-sided die. Keiichi-kun drew the answer as though it were easy. This is not something an average child can do. Keiichi, have you ever made a die with 20 sides from a magazine extra or something? Die only went from 1 to 6. I never even considered before this test that there were die with more than 6 sides. It was fun to imagine what kind of shape a die that went up to 20 would have. I had a die like that, to win at dice games against anyone. Laughs in D&D. You would be wrong. So I immediately wanted to make it. Finally, I entered cram school. There were only 4 students in the class they put me in. It's called Select. The highest class. Some of my classmates were in lower classes. I remembered how much better they had done at things like dodgeball and the 50-meter sprint, I felt happiness well up within me for the first time. Even if I wasn't as good at them physically, I triumphed over them in other ways. It was fun at first. The more I did, the more I was praised. My teachers at school suddenly started pampering me, and it felt good. My parents were satisfied too. I enjoyed seeing them satisfied. The more I listened to my parents' commands, the more fun things got. That did happen, didn't it? I grinned wryly in self-depreciation. As well, my studious lifestyle didn't end up lasting very long. It was only at the beginning I enjoyed learning more and more. I gradually got along less with my friends. My classes were behind me what I was learning in cram school. I eventually stopped respecting the teachers, given that they could put me to sleep with their lectures. And well, I was a disagreeable sort who bragged a lot about how much I knew, and the ways of the world wouldn't let me remain in that state of ecstasy forever. I would do as I was told, then I'd go above and beyond their expectations. They praised me. I was happy for that, and the cycle repeated itself like the wheels on a bike. But moving forward like that was how life worked, like a bicycle. When I moved to Hinamizawa, I realized just how inadequate it was. Some things happened. We started seeing how moving and getting a change in atmosphere would be nice. Then my father, he had a place that he liked, that he'd gone to a few times to draw the nature. He started saying he wanted to bring his atelier there. Me in blank amazement, they decided to move to Hinamizawa. After that, I met them, didn't I? The first day after transferring here, I went to the classroom with the teacher. I thought it would seem pitiful for her to bring me in there. I placed my hand on the door before she could, slammed it open, and set foot into the room. Clatter. Throwing powerfully, I opened that door. It was none other than my own determination to try doing my life over again. Then, within seconds, that determination took a hard counter to the face. A blackboard eraser fell on me. Plus, there was a huge rock inside. It was a supremely painful trap someone had set up. Come on. Satoko's already beating me right from the first day I transferred. That frightened me. I was bewildered. The class was surprised too. I wasn't just surprised that the students in the class were all in different grades and were different genders, because the room felt completely different from the schools I knew. But I spend more time with them. My surprise continued to grow. This fresh sense of surprise had never left my life, even to this day. Every day was a fresh new surprise. I've never had a single boring day since coming here. The days were lively, spent with other club members. We played Old Maid with cards with scratches on the back to cheat. We let all our passions go wild during our games. We went all out as regular participants in tournaments at the toy store in town, and many, many more things. Recently, during those times, there was the bento competition. It was that's when I saw an unexpected side to Satoko. Thinking back on it, I only ate dinner with her 2 nights. It was such sweet, gentle time spent, and it warmed my heart remembering it even now. I realized that Satoko was pretending to be stubborn and firm, and how brave she was, part of her heart always waiting for her Nini to come home. And I vowed to become her Nini. Satoko may have been nagging and overly critical, but she knew how to take care of someone. Though it might have seemed like she was taking the lead, it was actually her way of depending upon another person. Even if Satoshi and Satoko's lives as siblings were confined by their uncle and his wife, they were still warm, sunny days. When did those sunny days all go wrong? A mistake was made. Lamenting tragedies of the past would do no good, and I told myself that so many times, but I did anyway. Eiichi, isn't that why you chose your own path? Take back that life. Nobody ordered you to do this. You decided it on your own. You don't desire anyone's praise for this. You thought it all through yourself. Carve it out yourself. You'll do it now. This wasn't a path I could see very far down, not like the road parents or society could offer. It was a narrow path, dark, and utterly distressing, and for which the next step would always be shrouded in darkness. But that disheartening path would keep on going forever. It was an unlimited path. There was nowhere I couldn't travel. That kind of path, only available to those able to imagine where they wanted to go. Ashamed at breaking from the brightly lit paved road. In fact, feel proud. You found your very own path to walk. I hadn't discarded the paved road either. Once I achieved my goal, I would go back to that bright road. Then, I'd spend those average sunny days at my leisure. Crush. When I next realized the hole had grown so deep I couldn't believe it. Did I do all this myself? Think digging this much is enough, right? I put my shovel into the bottom of the hole. I would drag the body here, throw it into the hole, and cover it up with dirt. Even if it took me time to camouflage it by putting plants on top, it would all go much more easily than digging this hole had. I glanced at my watch. It was almost evening, and I hadn't realized it. I may have felt the time passing, but digging a hole this deep must have taken quite a lot of time. I took a seat on the slanted rock nearby and wiped the sweat from my brow. Now, once it got a little darker, I'd go get the metal bat I hid in the schoolyard. Then I'd make the call to lure him out. And the number of the things I needed to do to reach that moment were dwindling. I felt that moment closing in on me much more keenly than I did the passage of time. I didn't have any hesitation, but I still felt that contradiction. Every step in this process, I had a few chances to hesitate, turn back, let myself lose my nerve, think to endure those million temptations, and wait for when the time was right. It's an indescribably slow and painful torture. I had thought myself acting all weak because of that, but I stopped midway through. This was okay. It was fine. I could detest the abnormal act of homicide as much as I wanted. It didn't matter. I wasn't going to be a cutthroat killer after today. I would pass through this strange day, go back to the world I was in before. If I fell to the level of a psychopath who thought nothing of killing, I wouldn't be able to go back to my old life. This was fine with me. I didn't have to feel ashamed at hesitating to kill. Because I was human. It was so funny to me that I'd be the bearer of Oyashiro-sama's curse at the same time I was aware I was human. I exhaled lightly and stood. I concealed my presence and sharpened my senses in all directions to search for anyone around but me. Okay, let's go. One step at a time. I would walk my own path. Path no one had forced me to walk. Let's do this, Ichi. Cicadas made an annoying fuss. Their chorus covered up the suspicious noise of me breaking twigs underfoot, and their chorus filled the path far ahead of me, letting me know I would be alone for some time. The cicadas blessed the path I walked, encouraging me with every last ounce of strength they had. The sky was far above. Not even an hour, the veil of night would draw near. The sky would be tinted with dusk. By that time, the Higurashi would let me hear their chorus in place of the cicadas. When that happened, everything be over with? Everything have ended. I said something along those lines when I left Satoko's fate, up to a public agency. But this time was different. I would do it. I would carry it out. I would end it. It would all be over very soon. Everything would end. Yes. The Higurashi cried. And there's the title! Wait. I keep forgetting I can... Yes, he's...
Yay!
There we go. Don't think that fits what's going on, though. There was nobody at school. I couldn't hear the playful voices of children. This was the first time I'd seen the school with such a lack of human presence. Still, I quieted my breath and looked around, wanting to be unprepared. It had gotten darker outside, but it was almost like my eyes could see more clearly now. He can see clearly now, the rain is gone. Planning to kill the douchebag guy. Can't think of more where to finish this line. I made absolutely sure of my safety and walked to the heavy construction machine I'd hit metal bat behind. I had a tinge of worry, a premonition that someone had found the bat and hidden it somewhere else as a prank. That happened, but I take that as an opportunity to desist. It really wasn't there then. The sensation of chilled metal was still there where I left it. It hadn't run away. Satoshi hadn't run away. He had waited here patiently for me. Sorry for the wait, Satoshi. It's been a long time coming. You prepared for this? With a metallic touch, Satoshi grins at me in my mind. That's what I should be asking, you know. I did this last year already. You should be more worried about yourself. Right on, Satoshi. Let's show him a bad time. Satoshi's bat got lighter and lighter, and fit into my hands like it was being absorbed. Did it feel wrong to swing this? I could move it around so naturally it was like an extension of my own right arm. Of course it felt like that. Satoshi and I were holding one bat together. Next time I would make the call to lure the man out. It wasn't a bad time for it. My friends were doubtlessly parading happily through the stalls. I hadn't considered where to make the call from. My house and Satoko's were pretty far apart. If I called from my house, I wouldn't make it. Didn't I use the school phone? But as I thought, the room was locked up and I couldn't get in. Shit. So naive. I've at least figured this part out. A payphone? Didn't call him. Just for that. Day all over? Sorry, Satoshi. Just as I cursed my own naivete, a miracle occurred. A bicycle came into the schoolyard. It was a familiar middle-aged man, the one from the Forest Service field office. Isn't today Sunday? Was he to pick up something he forgot? Anyway, the forest officer went around back and felt around in his pocket, then unlocked the door and entered. Best possible coincidence. It had to be Satoshi who saved me. The metal bat, through just my contact with it, told me this was a chance I couldn't allow to slip by. Sections for the forest office and the school were neatly separated. I felt the man head into the forest office storehouse. It was so far in the back, students weren't allowed into it. The door didn't match its fittings well, but didn't close all the way. The gap in the door opened slowly as if to lure me in. I took a deep breath and went in. I tiptoed along, silently and stealthily, and made it into the teacher's lounge. That was the only place with the phone. As I held my breath in the teacher's lounge, I heard the Forest Service officer walking back over. Then, the back door clattered shut and was locked. I glanced out the window at the schoolyard and watched as the man got on his bike like nothing had happened and rode out the school gate. The school once again emptied, becoming deathly silent. I waited for a bit to make sure the silence was the real deal, then reached for the telephone on the principal's desk. I fished Satoko's house phone number out of my pocket. Yes, the number in the class directory for Satoko had been the one from their house now, where she lived with her uncle. I touched the dial with my fingers, and then thought for a moment about what to say exactly. He picked up, despite how many times I'd gone over it in my head last night. That I had my finger on the dial like this started to seep out of my mind like a cracked bucket leaking water. Simple would be best. More importantly, say it straight, not sound suspicious. I counted off 3 heartbeats and spun the dial. The call sound. Would Satoko's uncle pick up? Now of all times, the hope that he wouldn't pick up, and the feeling of doom and the knowledge that I couldn't save Satoko if he didn't, whirled around in a vortex. Hello? It was the voice of a grumpy man, like he had just woken up. He picked up. Hello? Say your name so I know you're Houjo, you asshole. Terrible if I got it wrong. Made up my mind. I had all the initiative on my side. Here we go. This is the Shishibone Okonomiya police station. Am I speaking to the Houjo residents? I was changing my voice. Did he really think I sounded like an adult? Did he believe I was the police? Yes. This is Houjo. We currently have your daughter, Satoko Houjo, here with us. What? Satoko? What did that brat do? He fell for it. I could tell by how tense he was that he didn't doubt my words. I can explain the particulars once you have arrived here. Would you mind coming to the station right away? Right now? I already took a bath myself. I don't really want to go out like this, though. What? You don't want to come because you already took a bath? Yes, right away. Right away? Geez, man, what the heck did Satoko do? I'll explain once you're here. I will be waiting. Thank you for your assistance. 1 second. I don't know where the police station is. Where am I going? You moron, what the hell? Okonomiya police station. Don't know where it is either. From around here? Why don't you know that? A greasy sweat came over my body. Eventually, as I was about to choke, he spoke. Oh, next to the fire station, right? That's pretty far. Thank goodness he remembered on his own for me. I didn't care where the police station was, as long as he left his house to get there. Then we'll be waiting here. Oh, wait. What am I asking for once I get there? What is your name? How about that, he wanted to know my name? Just leave your damn house already. My Bashi. Excuse me. It's close. Almost thoughtlessly told him my real name. I managed to change the last syllable of it, but I put the receiver down like I was running away. My fingers were trembling, and I was soaked with a tepid sweat. I wasn't just nervous about the phone call. That call, everything had finally been put into motion. I left the school. It was locked before, but it was easy enough to open from the inside. But I couldn't lock it again after I left. In terms of being thorough, I wanted to lock it, but I couldn't waste time going back to the teacher's lounge and looking for the key. I needed to rush back fast as I could and ambush him. I zoomed back to the scene on my bike. If Satoko's uncle got out of town before I got there, everything would be over. He learned there was no one at the station named Maibashi, and things would get pretty messed up. As I returned at full speed, I passed a family wearing yukatas. They must have been on their way to the festival. Many people in Hinamizawa knew my face, though. I didn't know theirs. Even just passing by them like this made me feel uneasy. But I didn't truly come around here. Those living in the area might not have known much about me. That didn't matter right now. I needed to get back as fast as possible, to control my breathing and to ambush the man. I hid my bike in a thicket and picked up Satoshi's bat, which I just let hidden in the shade. Then I held my breath, waiting to see someone. I wondered if he still hadn't gotten here, or maybe he went right out after the phone call and passed by here already. Couldn't figure out which it was set upon by an indescribable patience. Calm down, Keiichi. And if he came already, he'd pass by here on the way back, right? The end result would be the same. Wouldn't change the fact that he'd die. He'd probably be coming on his motorcycle. Would I stop him then? I figured it would be best not to think too hard and just hit him as he passed, or beat him out of his seat. The path was made of pebbles. If I hit him hard as I could, and made him lose his balance, he wouldn't be able to help falling. And then, the chorus of the Higurashi stopped. The sound of a bike approaching from fast away. I couldn't tell what sort of motorcycle it was from the sound, but I'd seen it parked before, so I'd know. It was getting rapidly closer. It was almost here. Just went a little farther, he crossed to that thicket and appeared in front of me. I'd take a moment to make sure it was him. When I had, I put my plan into action. The motorcycle appeared. The easily identifiable characteristics told me it was Satoko's uncle's bike without a doubt. Really him. Really Satoko's uncle? I wasn't making a mistake, was I? I looked at its characteristics again. Color, shape, and most of all, the man's clothes, face. Those last feelings of hesitation, I did away with them. Toko, now your Nini will end it, okay? Closer, closer. The bike came closer. Let's go. Satoshi. Shh. I jumped out of the thicket. I used my shoulder to basically tackle the uncle on the bike with all my might. Should have used your bat. Back! He gave a dumb shout as his bike completely lost its balance. Finally, it fell, the bike scattering clouds of sand, and after spinning, it stopped. Our uncle, tossed to the ground, didn't understand what had just happened and groaned for a few moments, crouching on the ground. My breathing started to become ragged. I couldn't have this emotion. Some weird secretion crossed through my brain and nearly made me hallucinate. Her uncle was groaning. Now was the once in line opportunity. What's I doing? All the sounds in the world cut off. My mental chaos from a moment ago withdrew like a lie. I could feel the temperature in my head rapidly cooling down. The tension in my muscles all went away like the strings had been attached to it had been cut. I let my hands dangle at my sides. It wasn't quite like exhaustion. You calm down now, Ichi. You need to remember again why things got to this point today. Scrape, scrape. I stepped over the pebbled path, taking one step, another step, then another towards Satoko's uncle. The more I walked, the more my breathing calmed. The more I walked, the more I felt my body cooling, calming, chilling with frost. At this moment, this guy had lost permission to live. I had just rescinded it, that we mustn't stay in this world any longer. If he lived any longer, Satoko's misfortune continued. It would be my responsibility for having allowed him to live. I could feel the cooling substance going through my whole body, even down to my capillaries. Her uncle was at my feet now, still on the ground like an idiot. I smiled coldly at how ridiculous he looked. That hurt. That's all it took, for it to hurt. Satoko's heart hurts much more. Now you're gonna feel that. And with your life, I'll make up for her pain. I erased all unnecessary information from my mind. I prioritized the murder of this man. Execute, execute, execute. Wham! Utterly calm, I delivered my first strike to the back of his head. I wanted to get at the most effective spot at least. During that first moment, I'd have to attack him while he was at his most defenseless.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah. If he was hit in the head, he'd cover his head. It was a defensive reaction all humans made, like machines. He'd use both his hands to cover his head. He couldn't pick himself up off the heap he was in on the ground. Like pounding a caterpillar into the dirt, I hit him over and over. He covered his head, I'd hit him in the side. He covered his body, I'd go for his head. If he rolled over, I'd strike his feet, his knees, his elbows. I didn't care where anymore. By just delivering one blow after another, I induced panic in him. I retained my overwhelming advantage, but I hadn't done nearly enough to deliver a fatal wound. Our uncle skillfully pulled himself off the ground and started to run like a fleeing rabbit. wasn't a judgment he'd made after seeing my face, deciding whether to fight me. Right now, he was fleeing by instinct, just trying to escape from the threat that had presented itself. A counterattack from the more physically capable uncle was what I was most concerned about. He may have run, but it wasn't all that unlucky. The odds were in my favor. The uncle didn't run away towards people, but off the path and into the woods. How pleasant that he would run in a direction where nobody else was. He was fleeing into strange geography like a rat that instinctively runs into tight spots over and over. Yes, he was no longer human. He was a rat. The blood vessels in my legs expanded, and my total oxygen supply increased. I lowered myself to gain the most explosive velocity I could. Without breathing, I became a wind-like shadow and dashed. I crossed thickets, crushed dead tree branches underfoot, and drove through the woods like a bullet. He ran so cowardly, arms flailing as he went. After catching up to him, I didn't need so much as a blink of an eye to strike him again. My senses, mind, and body were all sharpened purely to kill this man. This was the first time I'd felt like this. Well, this was the first experience I'd ever had killing someone. It felt natural to continue to do this for the first time, and that meant I had this much talent for killing. Or perhaps the act of killing was so simple that anyone could do it. I didn't struggle or grow tired at all chasing the clumsily fleeing uncle. No matter how much he ran, it was like trying to get away from his own shadow. He couldn't get away from me. I could easily aim at his back, his shoulder, and his head even from this unnatural stance. Each time I struck him, he wailed in pain and begged pitifully for forgiveness, but it didn't disturb my mind. I was neither excited nor plagued by hesitation like before. I felt sharp. I felt like a carnivore. Of course, so did the uncle who was trying to run away because he didn't want to die. He didn't want to be eaten, like a herbivore running with all its might trying to get away. Despite all the attacks, despite all the hits, he kept on fleeing without even staggering. And despite the bad footing in the forest, he impressively never tripped over anything. But there was no need to admire that fact. It was simply proof that he was no more than an animal. If he was chased, he would run. If he was going to be killed, he would run. He would bare his fangs at the weak, but couldn't oppose the strong whatsoever. He was lowly, vulgar, a diminutive animal. Such a puny little creature had harmed Satoko. Scar after scar to her body and mind, deep wounds that might not ever go away as long as she lived. My cold and calm emotions suddenly turned into bestial ones. My personality changed into something specialized for murder, purely to devour the diminutive animal before me. The uncle gave a puny little shriek, covered his head, and ran. I'm impressed by how much you can run. Fine. Run as much as you like. I will be your death. I will choose the moment at my leisure. Your legs will hurt. Your lungs will feel about to burst. Your head will die from lack of oxygen. If you feel the pain has become worse than death, then by all means, stop any time. Without turning back, suffocating on his terror of the approaching death, he just ran shamefully onward. He ran, but was chased, his head bashed with the metal bat, sweat and drool flying everywhere, blood clinging to him. From his mouth came the sounds of coarse, irregular breathing and high-pitched screaming that verged on crying. And pleas for forgiveness to someone I didn't know who. Each and every second was a second of atonement that I granted him. Now, run. And fall and moan and die. Where did you even crawl out of anyway? You were never here before. If you never here, you never should have showed up. You never showed up, our life would still be fun and enjoyable. We would have gone to today's festival, waited for each other, and gone to the shrine laughing. We would have been playing amongst the stalls right about now. We'd be browsing the strange food stalls you only saw at festivals, trying to get prizes from goldfish scooping, ring throwing, or target practice. Mion would surely be making into a competition, and we as a club would have a grand time. and everyone had been cheering for Rika-chan's dedication dance, and everyone would say how fun it was, and it would give us energy for days to come. Fun, enjoyable, and funny, warm time spent with friends. And that would have happened, but it didn't, and now it was all smashed to pieces. There was no doubt that would be what the world was like if you never showed up. You were the obstacle, the mistake, the heresy in that world. But I would correct that mistake now. I would erase you and make it so this last week never happened. Tonight was the Watanagashi Festival, the holy night where taking just one life was permitted in the name of Oyashiro-sama's curse. It looked like Higurashi stopped crying at some point. When the Higurashi cried, everything would end. And the Higurashi silenced. Lowly one, the hour of atonement is at an end. The Higurashi have stopped their crying. Thus, it is the end. The end. The end. The end. End. You don't have to run away anymore. Die with those dirty brains of yours smashed everywhere. Ah! Lightning and thunder struck like an explosion. It was so loud it shook the ground, and I smelled gunpowder. The response I get this time was clearly different from the one before. The metal bat crunched into the crown of his head. It was like the top of his head had caved in. The bat felt like it was biting him. It had been the final, killing attack that visited him. When I didn't overlook the opening he left as his knees gave out under him. I remained alert for a few moments, then thud, thud. I planted both knees in the ground, then fell forwards, burying my head in the ground. I've been holding back my ragged breathing, but now it all came out like a dam bursting. My head was dizzy and light and unable to maintain my balance. I leaned against a nearby tree. The uncle didn't try to guard his head any longer. After a disgusting sort of spasm, he stopped moving. Did I get him? Did I get him for sure? I fought back my exhausted urge to fall over where I stood and drew towards him carefully, bat still at the ready. It was possible he was faking it and trying to wait it out. Did I check for a pulse? I realized right away how unnecessary that would be. If I thought he might be faking it, then I would just have to keep pummeling him until I was satisfied. I fought back my ragged breathing again, and then I swung my bat far above and brought it down. Clunk. His body leapt like a bow, but he didn't try and cover his head. Then once again I aimed for his head and swung. His reaction was the same this time. After spending a few moments making his head into mochi, the hit gradually started to feel different. It started to spray a filthy, dark red liquid everywhere. That was enough. It was definite now. I had absolutely killed him. There was no sense of accomplishment, nor one of regret. I didn't feel anger towards Satoko's uncle, nor pity towards Satoko herself. Instead, right now, I was feeling like my heart had been stolen by the downpour. Begun to rain at some point, and how comfortable it felt. The rainwater drenched my body and dripped down to the ground. The excitement within me faded as the rain washed away the grime. In exchange, my shoes were so wet they made splashing sounds. Despite abusing Satoshi's bat like that, it wasn't bent very much. There were a few dents in it, probably from hitting the man, but nothing that would make it seem different from before. Instead, it had been stained with black, red, with mud and blood. But that itself would be evidence. The one piece of evidence needed to prove that my delusions hadn't just been daydreams, and that I'd ended Satoko's uncle for all eternity. All right, Keiji, calm your mind. The time for passion is over. Now is the time to be cold as ice. I needed to bury the body. But where was I? I'd simply followed the man as far as he ran into the darkness. I couldn't take a guess how far we'd run. It was already pitch black around us, and the only light I had to go on was the very faint lights on the road a little further down. It was so dark out. I hadn't noticed the darkness until just now. My vision was so good I could see the ugly man's hairline. I could have counted the pores in his head. It was only now that I realized how much crazy strength I had mustered at that moment. I went over to the street light. I looked up and down the road, desperately trying to figure out where I was. Oh no. This was the run road connecting Hinamizawa to the town. We were unbelievably far away from Satoko's house. Had the two of us really run so far a distance? My surprise at that was accompanied by the knowledge of the miraculous fact that despite running so far and making so much noise, we hadn't come across anybody at all. There was a long way between here and the ambushed location where I dug the hole. There was no way I could carry the body that far. Wait, aside from that, like the man took here, still lying in the middle of that path, that would be an issue. The police could tell whose motorcycle it was by looking at its license plate, and they wouldn't just leave it at that. Thankfully, the corpse was in a dark forest. In terms of urgency, dealing with the bike would come first, and I wanted to get that shovel back from where I left it to the hole. I shouldn't drag the body there. I would have to deal with it right here. Fortunately, the ground was like mud from the downpour. It was more sludgy here than where I was before. I might be able to dig a grave quickly here. Of course, my bicycle is still over where I'd left it too. It still wasn't over. On the side, had only been half of my goal. The other half would be just as important as the first. I would completely hide the body, not allowing the beginning to happen. I would erase the man like he'd never existed, and regain the peaceful times we had before. I bent my head backwards, and calmed my mind even further. The big water droplets struck my brow mercilessly. They were actually quite comfortable, and for a while I let my desire have its way. After coming that I was sharp again, I started running through the rain. Okay, actually gonna call it for... There we go. Gonna call that, and we should be able to finish it up. The next time I pick it up.